Hello, friends. Welcome in. It is the Matt Murphy radio portion of the broadcast day on Super Talk 99.7 WT. And pleased to have you with us. Let's get the pleasantries out of the way, and we'll get things lumbering under its own weight. It is episode 464 of our proceedings today. It's Wednesday, November 29, 2023. This is, as mentioned, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I am, as mentioned, Matt Murphy. It's the Libertarian Lunch. We've lots to get into and lots to do. At any point during the proceedings, if you want to participate, you may do so by dialing up 615-737-9986, either the phone lines or the super text line up and running. 615-737-9986. Our weekly visit with Cameron Smith of the Tennessean coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. And we'll speak with Representative Scott Cepicky at 12:35 today about what is now called the Education Freedom Scholarship Act, which was unveiled by the governor of the great state of Tennessee yesterday, Governor Bill Lee. We are working on getting the governor on the show, and I've been in communication with some of his press folks, his communication folks, and they're endeavoring to find a time. I'm hoping that the governor can stop by. That's what I'm angling for. I would love to have the governor in studio to sit down, not only to answer my questions, but perhaps via the super text line to answer some of your questions with regard to the Education Freedom Scholarship Act. And if you have any of those questions, now's the time to get them in, because we'll ask them of Scott Cepicky. While he is not one of the architects of this, he was there yesterday amongst other leadership. Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally was there. Speaker of the House Cameron Sexton was there. I don't think that the majority leader was there. I think he had a pre-existing engagement. But a lot of leadership was there. Representative Justin Jones was there. Only to thoroughly lambast the concept and the idea of getting better educational opportunities into the hands of parents who want better educational opportunities for their kids. But I suspend all of that conversation to say this. 1119 has written in and says on the super text line, "Hey, Matt, I do home appliance repair." Well, that's nice. Good for you. I hope business is going well. This morning, I was at Lori Morgan's house. Whoa. You know, you had my, what's the phrase from Django Unchained? You had my interest, now you have my attention. Or you had my attention, now you have my interest. I think that, which one is it, Mason? Is it it?
I think it's interest then attention.
You had my interest, and now, gentlemen, you had my interest, and now you have my attention. Let's use the Google machine, and let's figure this out. By the way, Mason Fleming is behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. We appreciate him in the absence of Bell K, who is off for this week. Matt, I do home appliance repair. All right, so you have my interest, now you have my attention. You have my attention, now you have my interest. Anyway, this morning, I was at Lori Morgan's for a repair. She's coming out with a new album in January. I told her she should get in touch with you, that I was sure you'd love to interview her. Absolutely. I'd love to interview Lori Morgan. She said that she would have her publicist get in touch with you. If you don't hear from her, maybe you should reach out. Hope I don't overstep my bounds here, but I thought you'd be thrilled to have her on your show. I love Lori Morgan. I love everything she's done for country music. I love old school country music, and Lori Morgan is certainly old school. And I would love to speak with Lori Morgan at any opportunity that I had, whether she has an album coming out or not.
Sweet.
Hey, the redheaded stranger's here.
I know her husband. I didn't know you wanted to have her on.
Well, sure. I mean, I'll have anybody on.
You have me on.
I mean, there you go. You know,
Cool.
Lori's husband.
I do.
I thought, wasn't Lori, wasn't she married to Fred Thompson for a minute? Is that right?
Dated.
She dated Fred
Thompson. And she dated Tony. No, not Tony. Oh, the quarterback. Hello. Dallas Cowboys.
Troy Aikman?
Thank
Troy
you.
Aikman.
Troy Aikman.
Okay.
Dated him. Was married to
And
Sammy.
if Lori Morgan's listening, she's probably really happy with us going down the list of.
She's married
Keith
to Sammy
Whitley, obviously.
Kershaw, wasn't she?
I don't
believe
know.
So. Now
She was married to Sammy Kershaw?
Wasn't she?
Queen of my double wide trailer, Sammy Kershaw?
I think so.
Vidalia, Sammy Kershaw?
I think so. I could, man, if I'm wrong on that, I apologize to Lori.
I've always heard, and I have no idea if this is true or not, but I always heard that Sammy Kershaw was a jerk.
Interesting.
I've never met Sammy Kershaw.
I've heard that.
You had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
You had my curiosity. See, I knew it was an interest. That was the one
Yeah,
that was
it sounded a
throwing
little
us out.
off. Yeah.
That was what you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Yes, sir.
Well, there you go. So, well,
but
get
I've
her
never-
in.
yeah, I've
if
never
she's
met
got a new
Kershaw.
album coming out, get her in here.
Heck yeah.
Come on.
No, she's a great country singer.
I love her.
Very traditional. Very, very true country.
Something in Red is a fabulous song. A Picture of Me Without You is obviously a great homage to her late husband, Keith Whitley. I think she came out with that several years after.
No, that wasn't Keith Whitley.
Lori Morgan and Keith Whitley weren't together?
Yeah, yes, but the song wasn't Keith Whitley.
She came out with it after Keith Whitley died, is what I'm saying.
I'm
No,
sorry.
George Jones originally sang the song.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah, no, you're okay. No, you're all good. No. I was
confused.
I might have some of my dates off.
Now you have my attention.
You had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
No, I love that stuff. The Picture of Me Without You is just Lori Morgan's version is just so good. So good.
It was the first version I heard. I was playing country music at WTHO, Your Better Country FM in Thompson, Georgia.
Your Better Country.
That's what they call themselves, Your Better Country FM, which I always thought was weird.
Were
It's
you
like, we're not the
competing-
best country.
I
We're
was
just
going
the
to say,
better.
were you competing with the best
I don't-
country
I don't-
station out there?
No, I don't. We're just Your Better Country. That was their slogan.
We're so.
I don't know why. I mean,
We're
they're
mid-level.
You know,
country.
I mean, it reminds me of later on in life. I worked for Waffle House,
Oh,
and we were across the street from Huddle House, and so there was a bit of a Waffle House, Huddle House,
battle, war.
battle,
Yeah.
big, and Huddle House is their slogan back then. I don't know if it is still now. It was "Best food yet," which I thought was funny. It's not very good.
But it's the
It's
best
the best
now.
yet.
Tomorrow, something better could
Yeah,
come along.
I mean, it might get you sick, but it's the best thing we got going yet.
Now,
Best
did
food
they
yet.
did they try to steal any of your smothered and covered type dishes?
Scatter, smother, cover, chunk, top, tie. I existed before peppered. By the way, I don't believe in the peppered. And by the way, Waffle House was dead to me when they started serving biscuits. Okay, all right,
Wait, what? Why?
because they don't have an oven.
Oh, well, how do they cook the biscuit?
They come
fry 'em?
they come pre-cooked and they put them on the grill.
Well, then that's not truly making some biscuits.
I don't,
It's
I just
not
don't know why
homemade.
you felt the need to go there. I mean, how many people possibly could have wanted biscuits? If you want biscuits, go down the street.
Go to
There's a
Biscuitville.
cracker barrel down
Yeah.
the street.
Here's the thing about
Biscuitville,
Waffle House,
whatever.
though, is it's open at 2 a.m. and Cracker Barrel is not. So if you really want biscuits at 2 a.m., I guess Waffle House.
Well, if you want
has
something
the-
to eat at 2 a.m., you'll have some toast, okay? You'll have some regular toast or some wheat toast or some raisin bread, and that's it.
And
or
smothered and
waffles.
covered.
Or some waffles. Or scatter, smother, cover, chunk, top, top.
I've never actually had a waffle at a Waffle House.
They're good.
Never.
They're good. We used to do some crazy things with the waffle irons.
Do I want to know?
No. I mean, we used to cook weird stuff.
Oh,
I used to cook ham and cheese sandwiches in the
I
waffle
bet that was
irons.
pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's
then,
probably like
you
a
know what?
panini melt,
Over
right?
there. Wait, who is he talking or am I talking? I'm sorry.
Patty
I don't
melt?
have my
You're good.
headphones
Yeah,
on.
like a patty melt kind of
Patty
thing.
melt.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a patty melt in the waffle iron
You know
as
what
well.
they're doing over there at Just Love?
I
They're-
don't.
They're putting biscuit mix in the waffle iron and then putting, your ham or whatever and making like a biscuit waffle with stuff in it. It's not bad.
That sounds
It's,
great.
it's not bad at all. I never would have thought to put a biscuit mix in a waffle iron.
Well, I mean, we did. If you go to a Waffle House late at night, they've got hot chocolate mix. I know they do. They also have waffle batter. I know they do. Tell them that you want a chocolate waffle. And tell them how to do it. Just take the waffle batter and put the hot chocolate mix in the waffle batter and see if they do it. And they'll say, "Oh, it'll mess up our waffle iron." And you say, "No." A former manager of Waffle House told me that is not true, that you're lying. You
No.
just need to spray the spray on it.
No,
Just
No.
being lazy.
it sounds good.
It is good. I mean, you get bored at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday night.
So if before Christmas we bring in a waffle iron here into the studio,
Mm-hmm.
would you make the staff chocolate waffles?
Sure.
We'll bring the batter. We'll bring the mix, the
Sure.
hot chocolate mix.
I'm happy
That
to.
sounds delicious. Do you
I'll
put
make
syrup
I'll
on
make
it?
it
or is
triple
too
over
s-
easy. I'll
is
do
it
it
too
anything
sweet
you want.
at that point if you put syrup on it also?
I know. You put syrup on it.
God, that sounds so
You
good.
can't get too sweet.
Then put strawberries on top.
But you know what? I tried to buy. It's funny. Before I left Waffle House, I tried to buy one of their waffle irons because it's a two deal. I mean, it's a pretty
huge.
cool. It's a
Yeah.
huge unit, and they wouldn't sell me one.
For shame.
Well, there you go.
There it is.
All right, I'm done.
going to Waffle House
All
for
right,
lunch.
yeah, I'll see
Okay,
you.
Bye.
I'll see you later. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee unveiled the Education Freedom Scholarship Act, which offers education savings accounts for students in all 95 counties in the state, in a Tuesday event that featured Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And apparently that got a bunch of liberals upset that how dare we have Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders in the state to tout the success of their program. Lee said the legislative proposal will establish statewide universal school choice, stressing at his press conference that a high-quality education has the power to change the trajectory of a child's life forever. And, of course, he's exactly right. Sanders championed school choice legislation in Arkansas. She joked about the athletic and cultural rivalries shared by Tennessee and Arkansas before declaring the states are now, quote, competing to be the best state in the nation on education freedom. And that's a rivalry that will benefit everyone in both of our states. Sanders said that she is proud of the fact that Governor Bill Lee is recreating some of the same successes seen in Arkansas. Tennessee Majority Leader Jack Johnson was not there, but he had a pre-done video that was played at the event saying that students should not be boxed in for attending a school that doesn't fit their needs. He applauded the governor's proposal, adding that it will give Tennessee parents the fundamental choice of where their child goes to school. I think there's a danger in overselling this. And I'm going to withhold some of my concerns until we speak with Representative Scott Cepicky about it. I am curious where he is on this proposal and whether he believes that it will accomplish some of the goals that we claim to want to accomplish. I do not believe that without more parental involvement in the failing systems that are in the state of Tennessee, that you're going to see substantial growth in terms of testing or educational opportunities in those systems. At the same time, I'm all about giving parents the choice to go to whatever schooling they believe their child will best benefit from. I am ignorant as to where we are on school choice right now. Okay? Meaning, I don't know the answer to a question I'm about to propose to you. If I have a child in a less than stellar school setting, let's say it's a junior high school setting, let's say it's 8th grade, do I currently have the ability as a parent to move my child to a different public school without having to move to that district? And I would guess that is not an opportunity available to Tennessee parents right now. What I'm talking about is moving from a public to public move, where if I'm just picking this at random, but if I'm in Sumner County and I want my kid to go to a school in Rutherford County, for whatever reason, do I have the ability to do that, or must I be zoned, or must I live in that particular school zone? So I understand why that wouldn't be permissible, because certain schools would be overrun with students. But I don't know the answer to that question. Because this seems to be more about getting kids an opportunity to go into a private school setting or a homeschool setting, and not allowing money to be an impediment to that move. And I'm getting a lot of answers about that. You can do that, says 1551. Well, see, and this is, I feel better about my confusion because I'm getting conflicting answers in real time. In real time, I'm seeing, no, Matt, you have to go where you live in that school zone. 9365 says, that's what I'm wondering also. Someone says, do these savings accounts include homeschoolers? Yes, I believe it does, by the way. You pay for out-of-district fee, and you're responsible for transportation. So, I want to know some answers to this question. Do we already have a level of school choice that gives people the ability to move from public to public? I'm willing to talk. I'm all about parental choice. I'm all about getting more parents more involved with their children's schooling. I think that is the key to all of this. Empowering them and giving them more opportunity to make decisions that are going to be best for their children. And as a result, infusing a level of competition back into the school system that doesn't currently exist. House Speaker Cameron Sexton cheered the bill, stressing that the ultimate education decisions for families should be made by parents, not government bureaucrats. Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally declared school choice a worthy goal, said he was grateful the governor brought forth the proposal. So it looks as if this is a proposal that is being well received amongst leadership in the General Assembly. Some are suggesting that some of the rural representation, even Republican rural representation, will not be as welcoming to this legislation as others. We'll talk about it with you. It's 1220 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back right after this. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Tennessee Men's Clinic wants to see you, gentlemen. If you're feeling sluggish, run down, low energy, if you don't know why that is, might I suggest that you need to get some numbers checked? And once you get those numbers checked, Tennessee Men's Clinic can very likely give you a diagnosis and a plan of action that's going to get you back to an energetic lifestyle. Let's talk about that. There's 2 locations to serve you. One's in Midtown, Nashville, Tennessee. The other is in Cool Springs in Franklin. Those 2 locations, both of them with the same telephone number, and you can call and schedule an appointment today. You'll go in, they'll give you an examination, they'll take a little blood work, and you'll get results back day of. They'll find out what's going on inside of your body. There are certain numbers that you simply need to know, gentlemen, and with that knowledge comes power. And with that power comes an ability to change your circumstance, to get back to an energetic lifestyle, back to the gym, back to working in the yard. And you know what? It can affect you in a lot of different ways. I know that at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, they focus on some of the issues involving bedroom activity, but it is more than just that. It is about an energetic and fulfilled lifestyle in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s, and beyond. Give them a call, 615-208-9090, 208-9090 for our friends at the Tennessee Men's Clinic.
I wanted to touch on the history of Tethered and kind of how it came about.
There was a handful of us that were already using similar equipment. At the time, however, you couldn't just go to the store and buy saddle equipment. It just didn't exist. And selfishly, we just were making gear that nobody else would make for us and that we wanted ourselves. And our goal was just to make enough to break even. Fortunately for everybody involved, it took off. It's got an appeal. People really liked it.
When you think of a saddle, that's what I think of. That's the first name that I think of when I hear about a saddle.
For me, the reason I got into it was I'm hunting public land, and most of the time I'm going pretty deep. Being lightweight and mobile was huge. I walk in with a pack and my bow. That's it. The more I did it, I was like, man, there's so many features here that are helping me improve as a hunter, where I can take different shot angles and stuff. And I'm going to tell you, I feel safe with this rope all the time.
Yeah.
From the ground up, I'm hooked in. If I fall off this thing, I'm just going to swing a little bit. And I think the learning curve is small. It's just about getting comfortable with your equipment. It's the biggest thing. And for me, it's repetition and then fine-tuning that to meet my needs. And that's the cool thing. What I like and what might meet my needs might be a little different from you. And even though we're doing the same thing, you can tweak it to meet your needs. And I really like that aspect about it.
But we've done a really good job of just innovating and creating products that don't exist. You're seeing the growth of the sport. You're seeing the innovation. And you're seeing all of these cool things that we make, and it's because we actually use it.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you until 3. We'll hand it to Brian Wilson in the drive at that time. Before then, Scott Sapicki will stop by. Our good friend Cameron Smith will stop by in the 2 o'clock hour. You on the phone, 615-737-9986. I'm going to start with this call because I owe this person an apology. It's my understanding, unbeknownst to me, Hannah held for an undue amount of time yesterday to talk about a subject that was on our minds at that time. And I apologize, Hannah. I had no idea that you were holding for the length of time that you were. And so I offer you the sincerest and most heartfelt apology.
That's okay, Matt. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, this is 2 very short stories about why being able to read an analog timepiece is important, and cursive. Both true stories. My daughter is graduating in 10 days from nursing school and asked for an analog watch for her present. And I said, I'm glad to hear that you want an analog watch. And she said, yes, because our professors in nursing school at Samford said that we need an analog watch because you cannot rely on an Apple Watch. You know, you can't take somebody's pulse holding their wrist and touch your Apple Watch. It's also not clean, you know, when you go from room to room. So that's an example of why you need an analog watch with a sweep hand. That makes sense?
I mean, it does. I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I don't understand why you just can't do that with a digital watch.
Well, how are you going to have a second hand with a digital watch without?
Digital watches have seconds.
Okay.
In terms of pulse, all you're doing is you're counting the number of pulses while you're watching the 15 seconds run by, and then you multiply it by 4, right?
But my Apple Watch doesn't run.
I'm not talking about an Apple. I'm talking about a digital watch, just a digital watch.
Okay, I don't know. I don't have a digital watch. I've never had a digital watch.
Okay.
I've always analog.
But I get what you're saying, though. I mean, for nurses, I'm sure that it would be beneficial. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one true story of why having. And plus, if you go out in the mission field and you don't have access necessarily to charging a digital watch, does that make sense? And we do mission trips in our family, and it's not convenient to say, "Oh, I can't use my watch because it's dying."
Well, it's certainly an advantage to have an analog watch if it's windable. Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, obviously, a lot of the analog watches nowadays use batteries too. But yeah, for watches that are windable, I mean, obviously, that's something that you would want to utilize if you're in a situation where you don't have power. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that's one true example. The other one is quite a few years ago, my husband was interviewing for a high-level job at a medical device company. And part of the process is they wanted to analyze his handwriting, which I still think is ludicrous. But anyway, he wanted the job so badly because it was going to be a great job. He doesn't know how to write in cursive. He was an Air Force brat and did not get a great education and never learned how to write in cursive. And so he wrote out in block letters the sentence that they gave him to write. And they contacted him back after he submitted it and said, you need to write it in cursive. And he said, I don't know how to write in cursive. And they said, well, then I'm sorry, but you cannot continue in this process because this is what we require. And I'm sorry. And he did not, he was dismissed from interviewing further for the job. So anyway, also, all our founding documents were written in cursive. I just think that the ability to read cursive really separates well-educated people from not well-educated people, and that's my personal opinion.
Well, Hannah, do you write in cursive?
Oh, yes, always.
Yeah. So you judge people who don't?
and I wouldn't say judge. I mean, I don't think bad of them, but if I have a business
What-
and I'm going to evaluate people for, how well-rounded they are, how deeply well-educated people know how to write in cursive, and that's my opinion.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're entitled to be wrong, but I know plenty of well-educated people that don't write in cursive. I mean,
But can they read it?
well, yeah, but there's a difference between reading and writing in cursive.
Well, I don't know, but in cursive, Johnson & Johnson's written in cursive, Eddie Bauer's written in cursive, and they all are having to spend a lot of money redoing their brands because people can't read in cursive, which I just think is very, very sad.
Well, I appreciate the thought. It's from a subject from yesterday. Hannah waited for, in excess of an hour. I had no idea that she was waiting. I lost track of that. And because of that, we allowed her to come back on today to revisit that subject. Hannah, that's all well and good, the way you feel about cursive and whatnot. I would suggest that maybe you're painting with a mighty broad brush when you suggest that it is a designation of intelligence or learning or education as to whether or not you can write in cursive. Maybe, I mean, I just look at reading and writing in cursive as two different. I mean, I can certainly read cursive. I never write in cursive, ever. And never will. Unless forced to. By some exterior something beyond my control. In the meantime, Jim and Mike and Chad want to talk about transferring from one public school to another. We'll do that in just a moment. It's 12:32. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let's talk about your food game in your kitchen for just a moment, because if you're not doing your cooking with Savory Spice at your fingertips, then I believe that you're doing it wrong. And I encourage you to contact Savory Spice by swinging in to one of their convenient locations and finding out the difference between their spice game and the rest of the Spice Boys right now, today, as a matter of fact. L&L Market, that's one location. The other's in Franklin, just off the square next to Gray's Pharmacy. So if you don't cook very well and you don't really know your way around the kitchen, they can help you because they've got pre-made different recipes and whatnot that can assist you. I talk about the Sunday pot roast quite a bit. Oh, my goodness gracious. You put some meat in there. You put some veggies in there. You put all of these spices that are pre-done for you in there. And then you just let it go. And 8 hours from now, you have a delicious meal for you and your family. Thank you to Savory Spice. Now, if you're an experienced cook, you know the spice difference. You know what the difference in quality spices versus some of the clumpy boys. You understand how that can assist you. So I encourage you to stop by Savory Spice. I'll actually be in L&L Market later on today, and I'm going by Savory Spice to get some delicious ranch dressing mix that my wife told me to pick up, and I encourage you to meet me there. Savory Spice, 2 locations, L&L Market in Nashville on Charlotte Pike, and in Franklin just off the square, Savory Spice. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 1237. You going to get him? Thank you, Mason.
Yeah, I'll go grab him.
Representative Scott Sapicki coming. Was I a jerk to that woman, Hannah? But I'm getting told on, it said, Matt, dang it, Matt, you were being kind of a D-bag to someone who went in. And I wasn't trying to be a D-bag to anybody. I wasn't. I just disagreed with the idea of, she said that to her, being able to read and write cursive was a demarcation as to education and intelligence. And I disagreed with that. I don't think it is. I don't have anything against anybody that wants to write in cursive. The point of the subject yesterday was whether or not it is worth the time and energy in our educational institutions to teach kids to write in cursive in modern day. The idea of the analog clock came up as another example of how things move forward, how there's not a lot of people that know, or nowadays, youngsters don't really deal with analog clocks very much anymore, and how time has kind of moved forward, no pun intended. That was all. In the meantime, Jim is in Mount Juliet with a thought on transferring from public to public education. I don't know. I'm ignorant on this subject, and so I'm trying to learn. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Hey, Ed, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Hey, several years ago, I retired, and I started driving a school bus to have something to do. Well, I drove the bus for a charter school. And back 8 or 10 years ago, there may have been, 15 or 20 charter schools. There's probably more than that now. But students can move from any public school to any charter school. And there's so many of them now that there's about a charter school in about every area. So they've got that option. You've also got the magnet schools. I mean, it's not like these kids don't have any options at all. There's a lot of places they can go. Now, as far as going from, say, East High School to, say, Pearl Cone, I think they have to have an opening, but if they're an athlete, they can't play sports for a year. That's a TSSAA rule. So that's kind of how they stop a lot of kids just moving around from one high school to another. But, you've got a lot of charter schools. They're very good. There's been problems with maybe a few of them, but not many. They test out as well as a lot of the private schools. And I tell you what, if they're offering these to low-income kids, $7,000, I don't know if you've priced private schools lately, but you can't get a lot of private schools for $7,000. And a lot of these people, if they're below the poverty level, they're not going to be able to afford to kick in a bunch of extra money.
Well, no, you're right. I mean, this is not something that's going to help anyone and everyone. I mean, I don't think – I think it goes toward helping people that maybe need a supplemental, but it's not all-inclusive, in other words. But but I do appreciate the information about transferring within the school system. I need some of that. Let me get to Mike real quick, and we'll welcome in Representative Scott Sapicki in just a moment. Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing good, Matt. From my experience, and I was married to a school administrator for about 10 years, to go from one school to another school in a specific district, you got to get Arizona approval from the principal and the school district itself. And it has no transportation. You have to provide all the transportation back and forth. Now, to go from one school district to another, say like from Murray to Williamson, you can't do that. There are some counties that will allow you to do that, like Williamson, but you have to pay whatever amount that they set to for your kid to go to that school if it's out of county. But there are some counties that do that, and then some counties that do not. They will not let you go from county to county.
Thank you for the information, Mike, and I appreciate it. I'm, like I say, ignorant on the subject, and so I'm just trying to learn how the rules are between county to county, or are they more uniform on a statewide fashion? Before I get to Representative Sapicki, I want to address this. I promise you, Charles has written in, and Charles says that I'm a genuine smart bleep, that I listen to him a lot while at work. I like his discussions, but it annoys me to hear him tell the lady she's wrong for thinking people should learn cursive because she thought it was a sign of intelligence. I know he's going to say he didn't say that because he can't stand to be wrong. That's my problem with him. Why does Matt Murphy think he's right all the time and the callers are wrong? Charles, okay, I'm wrong, and you're right, and I'm sorry. Please keep listening. I need you. Is that better? Is that good? Representative Scott Sapicki. What? Why are you shaking your head? I thought I did that the right way. Hello, Representative Scott Sapicki. How are you? Look at you hitting your own mic button.
I might have to turn yours off.
I'm getting in trouble. I wasn't disagreeing with the
nice.
woman. I mean, she said that we should write in cursive and that it's a sign of intelligence. I don't know.
Just be nice.
I have trouble doing that.
I'm nice all the time.
That's not true.
Until I don't have to be nice anymore.
That's not true at all. You're mean to me quite often.
Whatever. Where's Bell?
You were at the. He's out. He said if Sapicki's coming in this week, I'm out. So
that's not true. You know that.
He's on vacation. Some of us get vacation around here. I don't. So you were at the event yesterday?
Yes, I was.
Obviously, you are my go-to guy when it comes to education in the state of Tennessee.
I appreciate that.
So I'm here to learn from you, because I recognize, with an absence of children in the system and being relatively new to the state, that there's some gaps in my understanding about how this works now and how the Education Scholarship Act would change how things work. So right now, let's start here, because I'm getting a lot of different opinions from a lot of different folks in the listening audience. So can I transfer from public school to public school without moving?
Yes.
How? I mean, how does that work?
I'll give you a great example. This happens all the time down in Murray County. We have kids that go on the southern side of Spring Hill, which is in Murray County, and they want to go to school in Williamson County, which is on the northern side of Spring Hill. It could be, I think there's one school that's 2 miles away. If Williamson County has an opening, we passed legislation that says a student from anywhere can apply to fill that seat in Williamson County. The funding mechanism we have with TISA, that portion of the state would follow that student. Now, the local match wouldn't. And then one of the listeners said about a fee that Williamson County would charge for a student coming in from out of district. And normally what that is, Matt, it is the percentage of the property tax on an average in the county of what goes to education. Because if you pay property tax in Murray, that local portion doesn't go to Williamson. It stays in Murray. And so they are allowed to charge a fee, which is normally, if you talk to the districts, the percentage on average of what a person in Williamson County would pay to the school system.
Seems the fairest way to do it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That's why we passed a bill.
Right. Okay, so there is a level of choice that parents have going from public to public.
Already exists.
This would give more opportunities for parents who are unable to pay, it's my understanding, by giving them a scholarship to supplement the cost of going to a private school or to homeschool.
That is the second part of the why. The first part of the why is a parent that is not happy with their educational situation of their student right now. Currently, aside from going to public, there's no alternative for a family. Matt Murphy has a child, and you're not happy with your educational system, and you want to have an option. Well, this is going to provide an option for you above and beyond what you normally have available to you. And here's what's really interesting, and I keep hearing this, it's going to favor rich people. With the ESA voucher program we have right now for Davidson, Shelby, Nashville, Memphis, and Chattanooga, okay? There are restrictions to poverty level that only those people can apply. There are no rich people, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes. There are no rich people that are taking advantage of the ESA program in Nashville, Shelby, and Chattanooga.
Because they're not eligible?
Because they're not eligible. We've restricted it to just those that are income challenged, poverty level issues.
Has that, I would say I don't know that that's the right way to say it, but test program or pilot program, has that been a success?
We don't know yet. So, and this is what there was a school board member from Davidson County just posted this big article about how the kids that are involved in the educational savings account in Davidson are not performing, or some performing worse than the schools they left. Well, let's face it, the rigor is probably more difficult at that private school they've gone to. They're inheriting a student that is behind in education, And so that student's going to struggle to get caught up.
Yeah, so and I saw this. I've not read the article, but I saw the post. It's ridiculous. I mean, you're taking someone in a failing system and putting them in a system that's not failing. And because their test scores are going down, you're characterizing that as a failure of the program. It's not a failure of the program. It's a failure of the initial school system that they did not have that child up to the level that they should have been to easily transfer and keep those grades up. I mean, I look at that as a failure of the initial system as opposed to the pilot program that's trying to give parents more choice in the matter to make sure their child doesn't fall behind.
That is 100% accurate. We've got a system, Davidson County, and I just pulled it up before I came over here. Their TCAP scores in third grade, 26% on grade level.
Okay.
It drops to 22% in middle school and drops into the teens in high school.
And if you put one of those students in a setting, in an academic setting that is doing better at keeping up, then obviously that student's going to have an extreme learning curve, certainly in the first year or two in that new setting.
And that's why not only this year, Matt, but in the governor's proposal that the educational savings account, which was a 3-year pilot, will continue as a priority for those students next year into 24-25 school year. They will still be able to pull their money down as a priority so that in 24-25 and 25-26, we're going to get a good picture of how well this is going to succeed, because now they've had a year or two to reacclimate the student to education and now can start to push that student and develop them appropriately.
When you and I talked about this last, you were highly anticipatory of reading the details. Now you've attended the official unveiling. I expect that you've gotten more of the details. Where are you on this proposal?
Well, I think what we're going to see is the devil's always going to be in the details in legislation, right? From what we're seeing right now, Matt, trust me, from where it's going to end up is not going to be the same type of language. There are things that we're going to look at from other states. I'll give you an example, and I normally don't do this, but Illinois has done a good job on school choice. They have. They put some parameters in there that prevent Matt Murphy from saying, hey, I got a school now, send me your $7,000 and your kids. They've put some parameters in place that you have to be either certified by the state board.
Yeah, that was one of the objections that all of these pop-up private schools would happen.
So we're going to address those issues because we're going to have discussion on this. Trust me, it's going to be a discussion. But we're going to, and Matt, you know this about me, I'm always going to circle back to one thing in education. Does it benefit our students in the classroom? Does it give them a better opportunity to succeed? Does it change their lives to the positive that they can be who they want to be when they go to high school and college and beyond? That is everything that is driving this. To have a student that is in a school system, I'll give you an example if you want it.
Sure. But hold on. Give me the example. This is a professional tease right after the break. Okay?
You got it.
All right. So Scott Spickey is going to give us an example of what we're talking about when we talk about these education scholarship programs or this act presented by the governor yesterday in a ceremony down at the State Museum. We'll do that in just a moment. It's 51 after the hour. This is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief is located in Franklin, and they want to talk with you. And I invite you to give them a call. Schedule that appointment today. You'll be happy that you did. So the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, they can help you with all of your chiropractic issues, any of your chiropractic problems that you might have. But they can also assist you with soft tissue. It's the state-of-the-art industry equipment that they have, like the Class 5 laser system, the red light therapy, and spinal decompression. I mentioned that I had a leg issue, a knee issue recently, went to the Dr. Gill Center, talked to Dr. Wendy, Dr. D, Dr. V, and the rest of the crew, and they have literally over 100 years collective experience in the industry. And they spoke to me about what was going on. We took some x-rays and we realized it was soft tissue more than anything. And so I engaged in red light therapy. I engaged in the Class 5 laser system. Absolutely loved it, and it alleviated my pain and took care of the situation that I had in my knee. So regardless of where your pain is, they're going to be able to help you, and they want you to schedule that appointment today. Say Pain Relief. You get a special discount. When you do, mention me, Matt Murphy, as well. Call them at 615-882-4838, 882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this, because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call. Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, spending some time with Representative Scott Cepicky, breaking down this legislation, at least what we know about the particulars of legislation presented by the governor yesterday in an event that happened just off of Bicentennial Park, 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Governor Lee was there. Sarah Huckabee Sanders was there. Representative Scott Cepicky was there as well. And if you have any questions or thoughts, 615-737-9986. Probably better to get them in on the super text line than on the phone lines, although we'll try to get to a few phone calls coming up in just a couple of minutes. So of the objections that I've heard, and just I'm trying to figure out where the broadside objections are coming from in offering parents a better ability to make decisions about their child's education. And it seems that these are institutional objections, meaning that these are individuals that are involved in the system that don't want to see a shakeup of the system for some reason or another. And I feel like it's more a lack of willingness to compete than anything. But I want you to continue down the road, and you were going to give us an example before we came to break of how these types of things can benefit kids and benefit students. Just continue your thought there.
So you know, and I'm not picking on this school, but it's just I studied this stuff, and I studied it probably ad nauseum. But our Pearl Cone high school football team is getting ready to play for a state championship. Congratulations to them, right? But when Pearl Cone tests as a school, our TCAP tests, the data doesn't pick up below 4% or 5%. The amount of students that are on grade level in ELA and math at Pearl Cone High School, according to the TCAP test, is less than 5%. Now, they didn't get there at Pearl Cone High School, right? They got there through the previous 8 years of education that they've gone through, of being pushed forward without being held accountable for their grades. So now we are artificially or maybe purposely, these kids at Pearl Cone who aren't on grade level, that aren't going to do well in college, that are going to be limited on their opportunities, we are hurting them as they move into life as adults because we put limitations on what they're going to be able to do based off of their education. What if they had a better opportunity in elementary school or middle school for their parents to choose to get out of that system that's been failing them for 12 years and turn their educational opportunities around?
So how is it, and this is one of the basic questions that I wanted to have you on to ask, how is it that giving parents an ability to move their kids, I understand that level of choice and I understand the importance for that family, how is that going to benefit the school that they're leaving?
Oh, well, you bring in TISA there, the new funding formula, Tennessee's investment in student achievement. Most districts, and I'm doing it off the top of my head, so don't hammer me if I'm not close.
Wait, hold on a second. Mason, I got to go to a break, right? Am I late? I'm late for one. My apologies. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Scott. We'll continue that line of thinking in just a moment because I'm very late. It's 1 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Told ABC News that a team from the FBI has been in close contact with their families since the October 7th attack. At least 9 Americans remain hostages. The families said they spoke with President Biden for 90 minutes on a Zoom call a few weeks ago. Liz Landers, ABC News, Washington.
The Israel-Hamas war has tracked with the rise of anti-Semitism here at home. On the Senate floor, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
No matter what our beliefs, no matter where we stand on the war in Gaza, all of us must condemn anti-Semitism with full-throated clarity wherever we see it before it metastasizes into something even worse.
House Speaker Mike Johnson saying he has real reservations about the upcoming vote to expel Republican Congressman George Santos from the House, being that he hasn't yet been convicted of anything.
I personally have real reservations about doing this. I'm concerned about a precedent that may be set for that. So everybody's working through that, and we'll see how they vote tomorrow.
It takes 2/3 of the House to expel a member. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken with a warning for Vladimir Putin.
We must send an unequivocal message. No country will be allowed to redraw borders by force.
Blinken pledging ongoing support from the U.S. for Ukraine in its war with Russia as he wrapped up the first foreign minister-level meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council in Brussels today. You're listening to ABC News.
Often when we talk about United Structural Systems, I talk to you about waterproofing your basement or crawl space. I talk to you about foundation repair and some of the warning signs that you might see around your home in dealing with that. But today I want to talk with you a little bit about the poly-level lift system, which is a pretty incredible thing. Concrete leveling is a big deal in the state of Tennessee. If you've got concrete that's cracking, if you've got sinking slabs or patio steps, if your porch steps are tilted or sinking themselves, or if your sidewalk or patio has shifted, call USS, United Structural Systems, and ask them about this incredible poly-lift system. You know, it used to be that you had to just rip all of that concrete up and start over. That is not the case anymore. With a poly-level lift system, they put small fissures into your concrete, little holes, like dime-sized holes, and they lift with an incredible foam that expands to lift to the level that the concrete was previously at. It solidifies, and it is there. I'm telling you, it has higher load capacities than traditional approaches. It's much less expensive than concrete replacement. You can walk on it immediately. You can drive on it within 30 minutes. There aren't any patches or blemishes in your concrete, and the work is completed in a couple of hours. It's a dramatic improvement to the way that they used to do things. Ask USS about this when you make the call to USS, United Structural Systems. They simply guarantee their best, and homeowners trust USS. Call 615-488-7855, 488-7855. Serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. Online at USSTN.com. A lot of reaction to our conversation with Representative Scott Cepicky, and we continue said conversation, 107, and a good afternoon to you. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy. It's our episode 464. You can find us in a variety of places, and we invite you to follow us or let us follow you wherever you go by dialing us up on your smartphone. Wherever you stream information or music, you can stream Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Just type that into your streaming platform, and you'll get us. Take us wherever you want to go. You can also find us on Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, up and running, F&M Bank chat line, presenting Supertalk 99.7 WTN in that platform. We thank Representative Scott Cepicky for filling us in on exactly what we know about the particulars of a bill, an act that was unveiled by the governor yesterday. The expectation is this will be much discussed, much debated in the General Assembly coming in January. It is the Education Freedom Scholarship Act. And as a way of continuing the conversation, we welcome you back, Scott Cepicky.
My bad.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
No, it's okay, Mason. You got to turn his mic on. Come on, man. I know, we've got it. We got it in here. Don't worry about it.
I'm just saying he did it last time, so I didn't know if it was me or not.
I was daydreaming. I was listening to your silky smooth voice there.
I just like giving Mason the business. So some of the broad concerns that we are seeing from educational institutions around the state and other lawmakers around the state are that this is a program designed just for rich kids. And we kind of addressed that last hour, but I want to further that discussion. So help those just joining us, maybe we've got people just tuning in, understand exactly what this program would do. We talked about school choice as it exists already in the state of Tennessee, public to public. How do you believe that this will benefit Tennessee families individually as they inquire about the program? Tell me what it would do for them.
Well, the person who is in charge of the students, quote unquote, child's educational future and current is the parent. It's the parent's job to figure out what's best, because who knows the child the best is the parent. If they feel that they're in a situation that their child's needs are not getting addressed, even with the additional funding we put in there with the new TISA funding formula, and they think they want to try a different outcome or different experience for their child that's going to meet their needs, this grant program, this scholarship program will step in there and allow this parent to have a choice to put their student in a better situation for a better outcome. Now, you said something earlier that kind of tweaked my interest. You said that you don't have any children and you may not have a dog in this hunt, but Matt, you live in the great state of Tennessee. And able for Tennessee to succeed in the future, we have to make sure that the kids that are graduating our schools are able to fulfill the needs of Tennessee moving forward when you eventually one day stop doing this job, or you stop being a carpenter, or you stop being an electrician or a doctor or a pharmacist, right? We have to make sure the educational system is cranking out these kids that are able to perform at the levels that Tennessee expects, that you expect as a taxpayer. Is our public school system doing that right now? I don't think so. And I can give you a chapter and verse on data and statistics that says it's not happening. We have to provide another avenue, and I think what Governor Lee has done and the speakers have got behind is that an idea of we've got to give parents another choice.
How many kids are going to school in Tennessee, roughly?
1 million.
Right now? About 1 million.
About 1 million. And it's been stagnant for a while because some are losing, some are gaining.
Do you know off the top of your head how many kids go to private school in Tennessee?
Roughly 100,000.
About 100,000.
Yes.
So this could potentially add 20,000 students to private schools to their enrollment.
That's correct.
And this is a bill that deals with giving parents a financial ability to get their kids out of a public education system that they do not believe is best benefiting their child.
Correct.
And putting them in private or homeschool.
Correct.
How does the homeschool component work? Well, let me ask you this before I ask that. How does the money work? Does the money that is being provided, I know that the governor's office and others, they don't want to call it a voucher. So what are we calling it? Is it a monetary payment to the parents? Is it going to the school itself? How does that work?
So I can tell you this, on a student that's going to attend a private school, right? We are not going to send the money to that parent and then they write a check to that private school. The private school will accept that student, and all students are identified. We know we can track them all through an identifiable number. And then we know to send that tuition, that $7,000, if that's what it is, we know to send it to that school. But we don't send it all at one time. We send it in increments so that as long as the student stays engaged there, we continue to fund that scholarship. Because when you go to a private school, you have the option to pay up front or you can pay monthly. So we'll break this down. What gets a little wonky here, there's a good word for you.
I like it.
Is how do we handle homeschools? Now, first of all, homeschoolers want nothing to do with government education, like nothing to do with it. So we're going to have to put some parameters in there that protects the homeschool population from overbearance of the state or federal government. Now, this is all state money. So the federal government's out of this. I shouldn't have said that. That's my mistake. This is state money. So they want to make sure as homeschoolers, they wanted the autonomy to be homeschoolers to begin with. How do we allow them to access this grant? And that's what we're waiting for the language to come down from the governor and from his staff on how are we going to put homeschoolers in a position that they want to accept the money.
I'm a little confused. If I make a decision to what is the cost dynamic there? If I make a decision to homeschool my children, is that going to cost me $7,000?
Probably not. But there's, if you pool, and what in my mind, if you look at the bill,
you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. If you look at the bill, there's different levels of approved schools, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You could have a bunch of homeschoolers, let's say 10 homeschoolers, that want to take each their $7,000, pool that money together, go out to a local business that has a room, rent that room for the year, and go out and hire a teacher to teach their kids.
Haven't we just created a private school?
In a small scale, yes, you have. But
then at what point do those systems need to be accredited?
So that's what's really interesting. And I told you about giving credit to Illinois here. Illinois put some parameters in place that says unable to receive the scholarship, right? As a entity, you have to be either accredited or approved by the State Board of Education or by a nationally recognized board. Homeschoolers, classical education people, they are accredited by a national organization, and that's how they get their bona fides. I think we're going to put some guardrails, and that's why I keep telling people is this is just the beginning. What this bill's going to look like at the end, I guarantee you is going to look like a lot different than what we're just going to look at when we get it.
How are we as a state paying for this? My math, and I want to try to demonstrate my public education from Georgia. It's is it 140? Is that what you got? 140 million?
Yeah. So if it's $7,000, 20,000 students, you're looking at 140 million. Now it gets tricky year two, because in the governor's proposal, in the 25-26 school year, he opens it up to every student statewide. But here's where,
so the 20,000 cap is just a first year,
according to what we've been told from the governor's release. It's 1 year, the first year out. And what that does is it buys them the ability to get that next year of that ESA plan we talked about earlier, to get another year of data there too. So those students take a priority. So it's 10,000 for 300% of poverty. And I know what that is here because I went and got it for you. For a family of, let's say, 4, that's $90,000 a year. So if you make less than $90,000 a year, you would qualify under that 300% of federal poverty.
So you go to the front of the line on.
You got it.
On the 20,000.
And if your child has a disability, they go to the front of the line.
So what about, and I've heard from a number of people over the last several days as we kind of speculate as to what's going to be in the legislation.
Mm-hmm.
There are some that are suggesting, and I don't know, that most private schools cost more than $7,000 a year.
That's correct.
So if I'm, for example, if I'm at the poverty level, or if I'm a little above the poverty level, say 200%, make $70,000 a year, that $7,000 isn't getting me all the way there.
Well, it is in Nashville, because we've got over 1,000 students that are already taking advantage of it, and there are even stricter guidelines on poverty levels.
So the suggestion is that you'll have to make a determination as to which private school that you go to. There are some private schools that are at that $7,000 level that you would point toward, as opposed to some of the more expensive ones. Is there a way to, are we going to carve out a way for a supplement? In other words, if you get me the 7,000 and the tuition is 10, I can supplement the rest of the 3?
Correct.
That's the idea.
Right. And so remember, when you go to private school now, you have the ability as an individual to apply for financial aid on top of a scholarship.
And that will still be available to those.
That's correct. And so let's say a private school costs you $14,000.
Okay.
And you qualify for the 7, so now you're down to $7,000, and you apply for financial aid, and they grant you $3,500. Well, now, in able for your child to attend that school is going to cost you $3,500.
Out of pocket for the parent.
Correct. So it's not only those parents that are looking to get into private school that can't afford it, it's those parents that are looking to get into private school that if you help me, I can make up the difference.
A lot of people want to ask you questions on this. Let's take a short time out and we'll start fielding some questions, because I think your questions are far more important than mine at this point, and I'm talking about you in the listening audience. 615-737-9986. Scott Sapicki's here with us. It's 1:18 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I wanted to touch on the history of Tethered and kind of how it came about.
There was a handful of us that were already using similar equipment. At the time, however, you couldn't just go to the store and buy saddle equipment. It just didn't exist. And selfishly, we just were making gear that nobody else would make for us and that we wanted ourselves. And our goal was just to make enough to break even. Fortunately for everybody involved, it took off. It's got an appeal. People really liked it.
When you think of a saddle, that's what I think of. That's the first name that I think of when I hear about a saddle.
For me, the reason I got into it was I'm hunting public land, and most of the time I'm going pretty deep. Being lightweight and mobile was huge. I walk in with a pack and my bow. That's it. The more I did it, I was like, man, there's so many features here that are helping me improve as a hunter, where I can take different shot angles and stuff. And I'm going to tell you, I feel safe with this rope all the time.
Yeah.
From the ground up, I'm hooked in. If I fall off this thing, I'm just going to swing a little bit. And I think the learning curve is small. It's just about getting comfortable with your equipment. It's the biggest thing. And for me, it's repetition and then fine-tuning that to meet my needs. And that's the cool thing. What I like and what might meet my needs might be a little different from you. And even though we're doing the same thing, you can tweak it to meet your needs. And I really like that aspect about it.
But we've done a really good job of just innovating and creating products that don't exist. You're seeing the growth of the sport. You're seeing the innovation. And you're seeing all of these cool things that we make, and it's because we actually use it.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, at least another 8 minutes or so with Representative Scott Cepicky on the Matt Murphy Show as he answers some of your questions regarding the unveiling from the governor and other dignitaries of the Education Freedom Scholarship Act, which will offer education savings accounts for students in all 95 counties. It's an event that featured Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I believe they've offered some school choice in Arkansas. How many states have already done a version of this?
Off the top of my head, I think it's 9. 9.
Where would you point to in your research and understanding as to a state that most closely resembles what we're trying to do in Tennessee, or is there one?
Well, I don't. It's hard to answer that, Matt, because I haven't seen the final language. I haven't seen really hardly any language. And so I think one of the success stories you'll be referred to often is Florida.
Okay.
When Florida did this, and the one thing you and I haven't talked about is the capacity. So if we allow these kids to pull these scholarships, right, do we have the capacity for them to end up somewhere with most private schools in the state on wait lists? That's a whole issue right there. When Florida did this, the privates came in and made tremendous investment in Florida and built private schools all over Florida and created an avenue for these kids to wind up somewhere.
I see what you're saying. So maybe with the 20,000 cap in the first year of the program statewide, you would have maybe you wouldn't, but maybe you have the capacity. Let's say you do.
Let's say you do.
But in the next year, if you open it up and take the cap off, at some point the private schools are going to fill up.
Well, yeah, they're going to say, I have no capacity anymore. With most schools already, especially in southern middle Tennessee, most schools already being at capacity. So as a board member of a private school, are you going to invest in capital to expand your school for a program that, as you know as well as I do, the General Assembly can end at any time they want?
And for those parents who have already invested in their child's education by sending them to private schools, they're eligible for this program, right?
Every student in the state of Tennessee is eligible as long as there's income, as long as there's revenue funding from the General Assembly. So here's some priorities that'll probably be put in place. If let's say we have 100,000 kids that want to take advantage of this, but we've only because that's about $1 billion, but the General Assembly's only put $500 million into the program. Then now how do you tell somebody no? And I think what you're going to see is the initial part of this that has poverty levels, disabilities, things like that. I think those will take precedent. So we're going to make sure the kids that have the most challenging academic hardships would have the ability to take advantage of this first, which kind of takes away the argument about this is for rich people.
I want to get to as many of you as I possibly can in the next 5 minutes or so. So if you have a question for Scott Cepicky regarding this scholarship fund or act, 615-737-9986.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to remind everybody, this is not my bill.
That's right.
This is the governor's bill.
Well, yeah, that's right. And I would expect Lamberth would carry it as House Majority Leader in the House.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it'd be a chairman of education.
Okay. I think Jack Johnson's over in the Senate. He's already announced he's carrying
William
it in the
might
Senate.
file it, but I think he would put. It would make sense to put some in education.
You are broadly. I mean, you have invested your time and energy in the issue of education since as long as I've known you.
Yes, sir.
And you are broadly speaking supportive of the legislation.
Yeah, I got to see the language to see how it's going to flesh out.
Sure. Jim is in Smyrna. Jim, you're first up with Scott Cepicky. How are you, Jim?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I have a speech disorder, so if I don't make sense, please ask. I'm a retired teacher from Indiana, and I switched from teaching public schools to private schools right when Indiana did. They call it the voucher system. And we saw some students moving to private schools, but not a mass exodus from public schools, because there are some good public schools, but there's also some that need a lot of fixing. But the students shouldn't get caught in that gap. We in Indiana, in the private school I was at, we took that money, whatever the state gave us, and that's what we charged those students that came from homes that were lower income, and that was the fee for coming to the private school. And so we were able to educate those students for less than what the public schools were doing, for because we got less dollars than what the public schools were getting per pupil, the way that system was set up. But it worked. It wasn't that it drained students from public schools. The public schools were still flourishing, and that's where you get a lot of the kickback is from the public schools.
Let me.
I think it's a great thing that Tennessee's doing this.
Well, and Jim, let me give Scott an opportunity to respond. Thank you for your call, and it was well spoken by you.
So here's my quick question for you. Anecdotally, when you were a teacher at that private school from coming from public school, was it your experience that these students coming from the public school were behind in their education and you had to work to get them caught up?
I accidentally hung up on Jim.
You did.
It's on me. It's on the host. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were going to ask him an anecdotal question. But let's say that he said yes.
Wow.
Jim, call back so that Scott can ask you the anecdotal question. Because I
draw, Matt.
I was quick on the draw there, giving Scott an opportunity to respond. Bruno was next up in the borough. Hey, Bruno, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. So I have a question. Why does the funding even need to be additive? Why can't it be net zero, where when students take the private outlet, it's deducted entirely from the budget of the local school district? That way we don't blow the budget up for the state. And in addition to that, we talk about capacity, but if we phase something like this in over a period of 10 years where maybe everybody's eligible for a $500 voucher in the first year, $1,000 in the second year, working its way up over the course of 10 years to some number equivalent to what they spend in the public schools, you'd give outside investors a chance to build up, alternative school systems and maybe even buy existing schools from the public school system that fail, but they have good facilities. So why not do it that way?
I'm not hanging up on Bruno.
Don't hang up, please.
Do you have?
I do.
Okay.
So to answer your first question about the redundancy of the funding, our public schools are funded based off of attendance. So if Matt Murphy attends a public school and now Matt Murphy's going to take advantage of the scholarship and Matt winds up going to a private school, the public school is not able to say that they have Matt in school. Therefore, the state will not fund Matt anymore in those schools.
Okay.
Now, what's
wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that, sir. But what happens is now you build up a surplus in the funding formula for the schools, for the public schools, which now gives us flexibility in the General Assembly to either pay teachers more that remain, to create a bigger pipeline of people who want to get involved.
All right, Bruno, I didn't hang up on you, but I think you got something going on there in the background, so I'm going to move on to another question. I think that answers the question. So, and two, I mean, from a political perspective, I understand that the politics of this dictate that if you began subtracting money out of the public education system to add it to the private education system through a scholarship fund, the howls that we are already hearing would be exponentially louder.
That's correct. And let me tell you this, since 2018, since I've been elected to the General Assembly, the budget in 2019 was $9 billion in education, Matt. It's $14 billion now. Now,
that's a lot of money.
We are starting to see this worm turn in reading. You saw that this year with our, okay? But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Now, I will tell you, being around my colleagues, we are going to continue to invest in public education because the majority of students are going to go to public schools. We need to make them as good as they possibly can be and productive as they possibly can be.
I'll get to your super text questions in a moment, plus a couple of you wanting to ask questions of Scott Cepicky. We've got him for one more segment. It's 1:31. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A long-form discussion with Representative Scott Cepicky, spending a little overtime with Scott as we attempt to break down what is being described as the Education Freedom Scholarship Act.
Proposed by
the governor of the state of Tennessee. And supported broadly by people like Representative Scott Cepicky. Scott's not a sponsor of the bill, but he's here to talk about it because he understands education in a far more in-depth fashion than your humble host. And so I wanted to make sure that we could answer some of these questions that you're bringing at us, and we are doing so. For example, on the super text line up and running, 615-737-9986, why are you state officials taking more taxes from me to fund this voucher type thing? Why not from the school budgets, since it's the schools that have failed? And don't say you served my child, I'm homeschooled. So the basic question, why not? I mean, it kind of is a bounce from the question that was asked before the break. Why aren't you taking this out of budgets? If kids are moving out of the public education system into the private education system, and we are, as a state, supplementing the cost of doing that, why aren't we moving that money with the kids?
So let's be cautious at first to make sure this program is going to work before we invest billions of dollars into this thing.
All right.
Let's make sure that we get some good data. Now, that's why the ESA, the Educational Savings Account, Governor Lee's voucher bill from 2019 that was tied up in the courts for 2 years, that's why it's important to get that data on the success of those students so we can hang our hat to say, hey, this does work. It's about getting educational outcomes for these kids in a better situation than we are right now in Tennessee. Now, public schools are not going away, Matt, in Tennessee.
Of course not.
Trust me, they're not going away. And the funding for public schools is still going to stay there. We are not, let me say this again, we are not increasing taxes on anybody.
Well, then where's the money coming from?
So in our budget, and I asked this question on the House floor last year because I was curious. Our budget last year, I think, was $56 billion with a B, $56 billion. And I asked the chairman of finance, hey, out of that $56 billion, how much money is being spent on one-time expenditures that we won't spend on next year? It's recurring money for non-recurring expenses. And the answer was, I think, $13 billion. So we have the money. That's why we gave $3 billion to TDOT to start to get caught up on back projects, because we financially manage this state in a very conservative way.
So wait a minute. You guys are overtaxing the citizens of Tennessee to the tune of $13 billion?
You know what's crazy? Is we don't have that thing called a state income tax, Matt. Do you know what it is? It is a testament. Hold on. Let me finish. It is a testament to the people of this state that believe in Tennessee's economy, that go out and spend things and buy things. Now, we'd give a lot of money back to locals via parks, recreation, grants, trying to funnel that money that we don't need back to the locals to let them use it to make their communities better.
I mean, when you guys have trouble figuring out where to spend that money, I can think of a radio show host scholarship fund program that we maybe could initiate at some point.
So there'll be legislation that I'll put in place to make sure that doesn't happen.
Poe is next up out of Franklin, wants to talk about the homeschooling aspect of this. Poe, you're on with Scott Cepicky. Good afternoon.
Hi there. How are y'all?
Good.
Very good.
I was calling. I know earlier in the show you kind of questioned, does it cost $7,000 to homeschool? And I just wanted to chime in. I've been homeschooling for 14 years, and I'll give you just an example of this year. We're at a 2-day tutorial. That's $3,100. My history curriculum this year costs $400. My science curriculum costs $300, and my kids are in a carpentry shop class, which is $700. That's $4,500 right there. Also, a lot of people go to a homeschool convention to hear speakers, learn about curriculum, get encouragement. That's $1,500. Then if you take 5 field trips out of state at $150 a piece, you're up to $6,800. So it's very easy to come to the $7,000 figure. But my main question would be, if I took this money for my children, what does the state need to have from me? Because I know when I've looked into being in sports programs at schools here in Franklin, the school wants to know your whole curriculum, which I'm kind of confused as why the school needs to know my curriculum if my son's just going to be playing basketball.
Poe, keep listening online, because there are several questions regarding the homeschooling aspect to this, and you keep listening as Scott Sapicki answers some of these questions. One other person says, hey, Matt, please don't hang up on me. Ha ha. That's funny. But curious about the homeschool factor. My family recently started homeschooling. How will this bill affect homeschool families? Will it be a tax credit? Or is there some way to return the, quote, public school tax dollars to families that homeschool?
So that is the portion of the bill that's going to get the most scrutiny, is how, because I can tell you this, I've heard from homeschoolers across the state, and their main thing to me is leave me alone. I've chosen to get out of public education. Let me educate my kids. And that's what I've always tried to live on with homeschoolers. What we have to make sure, and is she still on?
And she is not.
Okay. I wish I could ask her is, one of the questions that I'm trying to figure out is if we could craft the bill in a way that would allow the homeschoolers to access the $7,000, but with literally zero strings attached to it, because they're taxpayers in Tennessee. They pay sales tax. They pay their property tax. Would that satisfy them? And trust me, in my office, I guarantee you I'm going to have homeschoolers in my office about this legislation. And I welcome that because I want to talk to them to get this right. It does cost a lot of money.
But if you start spending some of my tax dollars for the purpose of homeschooling these kids, wouldn't you, as a representative of my tax dollar, want some form of guarantee that that education is up to the standards that we would expect it to be?
And so that's where the legislation comes in, is where you make that an opt-in for homeschoolers.
Right.
If they opt in, eyes wide open going into this, here's what's going to be required of you if you take this money.
Yeah, this is the expectation,
right,
coming back from, whatever it might be, testing or whatever.
And it's the same thing with private schools, right? Eyes wide open. If you allow a student to come with this scholarship, here's what the state's going to expect of you. And that is where I do my job in filling in that legislation.
Do you expect, and maybe this hasn't been determined yet, from a homeschool perspective, that this will come in the form of a tax credit? It will come in the form of an actual monetary payment?
Well,
to the homeschool family?
Okay, so in a tax credit situation, those are states that have state income taxes.
Well, I understand
so
that.
we don't have that. So I don't.
But my point is that you mentioned the private school scenario would be that the parent applies to a private school, gets accepted to said private school, and then that 7,000-ish monetary payment goes directly to the private school in increments of some form. And so I'm asking how will that happen in the homeschool setting?
So if you remember what she said about the $3,100, she pays into a cooperative, right?
Right.
So that cooperative could be tasked by the state of collecting the attendance records and sending those attendance records to the state, so the state knows where to send the $3,100 to pay for her $3,100 fees to gain access to that cooperative.
See, I'm already hearing my homeschool parents out there in the listening audience red flag this as a way to turn their homeschool situation into a private school situation, which is something that I don't think they want to do.
That is the nuances of the bill, right? We've got to figure out how to, let's face it, homeschoolers are homeschooling they don't want to be part of the government situation. They don't want to be part of the government solution, right? They want to right. They want to be autonomous. So, first of all, it's going to be opt-in, obviously. But second of all, how do we help them? Right? It's real cost to her, right? Real money to her.
Well, yeah, a lot of times when families make the decision to homeschool, and by the way, I want to make sure that all of you homeschool folks know, because I don't want anyone to think that I was suggesting that it doesn't cost you any money to homeschool. And Poe, I appreciate you clearing that up. That's not my suggestion. What I was saying is that you don't cut a check to a private institution in the same fashion that people that take their kids to private school do.
Right.
It's a different type of cost, but that cost involves, a parent deciding not to work and staying home with their kid, that sort of thing.
Right.
Right?
And those homeschooler accreditation agencies, they're accredited. So in the bill, we may put something in there that says we just send the money, but here's devil's in the details, right? Well, if I send the money, what do they got to give us back as a taxpayer, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that you're not just throwing your money away. You want to make sure these kids are getting educated. So we don't want these quote-unquote places popping up all over the place. Matt Murphy's, Education Society, that is
That's a great idea.
No, it's not. It's a bad idea.
The MMES.
Oh, golly. But this is what I'm trying to tell people right now is it's eyes wide open, folks. We've got to get the legislation in front of us so that we can start to talk to people and figure out homeschoolers. Is there anything we can do to help you, or is it better just to say it's opt-in if you want to do it?
Right, and what you just said made sense. So a lot of families that choose to homeschool, they might not have the structural ability to know how to do that, but they lean on other places and other, I would assume, I bet I can be inundated with them if I asked.
Right.
Organizations that provide materials, but there's a cost to providing that material and that structure for the homeschool parent. So that it could be a supplement to that.
So if we could say, hey, we can help pay for that for you with no strings attached, is that okay with you? Even though it's opt-in, right? So we got to make it where the homeschoolers and the people that are going to take advantage of this to private schools, it's got to be opt-in. It can't be mandatory anywhere, right? It's opt-in. So you go into this eyes wide open, here's what the legislation says, and if you're okay with it, opt into it.
Jackson is in Lawrenceburg. Jackson, you're on with Scott Sapicki and Matt Murphy on the Murphy Show on Super Talk. Hello, Jackson.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing well, sir.
No, I wanted to comment on that. I've got a 16-year-old in high school, and all through elementary school, they use textbooks like I did growing up in school. And he made not only hundreds, but he made 108s, 110s, and he was doing. I was looking forward to when he got in high school, he'd be valedictorian someday, you know. And on that SAT-10 scores, he was, I think, in the upper 6% in the state, and that was all the way through 1 to 5. When he left the 5th grade and started middle school, he was on 11th, 10th grade level in the 5th grade. He gets to the middle school, and then the ball game starts, and it's more concentration on ball teams, and they got everything in the world now. It's not only baseball, football, and basketball, but soccer, badminton, fishing teams, shooting teams, everything you can think of. And more of the money has been spent on that and Chromebooks. Chromebooks was the biggest mess it ever was, because he comes home having problems in geometry or anything, and he's making failing grades, and I say, son, where's your book? You know, used to at the beginning of every chapter of some kind of new math or anything, they would have 4 or 5 examples worked out so you could say, oh, yeah, there's how you do it. Well, I can't help him at home because I can't even see what he's doing at school. It's all on the Chromebook. And when he goes to school, he sits in a class, the teacher tells him what to do on the Chromebooks, and they're doing no teaching at all other than telling them what to do. They could be very well doing that at home. So my suggestion on the vouchers is they are a good thing, but when they just started giving them to, like Shelby and Davidson County, that was bad, because it should have been open to every county. And if they would just cut out public schools altogether, and these private schools, see, they got to keep good teachers. If they don't, you will take your kid out of that school, they're not doing good, put them in another. It's like any other kind of business. You don't like the service, you go somewhere else. When you're in public school, you have no choice. You send your child to that school, that don't matter what the education they're being taught or how bad the teacher is or anything else, they've got to go there. But look at the money that would be saved and the better education that the kids would get if they would give them all vouchers and let them start these private schools, and they would try to compete with each other to get the students. They would have the best schools they could, the best teachers. To keep your child there, they would have better security to keep your child safe, because you would want your child going to the best school. And look at the money that would be saved, because if you look at any school, the gym is the biggest part of it, with high ceilings and all. It takes more to heat and cool that gym than it does the rest of the whole school. And just a few kids are.
Jackson, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was trying not to interrupt you, but I'm very limited on time. Is there a final question or final thought before I get Scott's thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, I think they should go on with the program, the voucher program, and eventually phase out and cancel all of those trillions of dollars being spent on these schools that are not doing anything to educate our kids.
I mean, Jackson's talking about privatizing school altogether. Wasn't he?
Well, that was it.
That was kind of the end thought there.
I think I think you get into a capacity issue. We have enough schools that probably most private schools in the state are on a wait list right now, and that's only 100,000 students statewide. And we've got 1 million students in the system. Let's
how does it? And not to interrupt you, but in the
you did
2 minutes or so. I mean, it wasn't my specific intention to do that, but I recognize that we only have about a minute left. Explain again. Let's just circle back to how does this make public school better?
Well, one, it'll create competition, but it'll drive people to look at the things that we're not doing is why people are leaving, and they can start to address those shortcomings. The funding is there, Matt. We've increased this budget almost $5 billion in 5 years.
So it's not a money issue.
It's not a money issue, and we need more people getting into the profession, and that's why we passed with the governor increasing teacher pay. We've got to get more competitive in the market with unemployment at 2%, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to get more competitive in the market to attract more people to your business. And let me tell you, education is a $14 billion a year business in Tennessee. And it is. And so we have got to do more things from Davidson to Mountain City to Memphis. We have got to do more things at the legislature to make education more attractive.
It will be the issue in the General Assembly come January. Agree?
You think?
I mean,
we could probably move the capital to Knoxville and nobody would know it.
Well,
we're not going to do that, folks.
Let's not
We're
do
not
that.
doing that. But yeah, this is going to be the bill.
Thank you for the better part of the hour. Obviously, we'll have you back multiple times between now and then to describe this as more details come out about the legislation. Thank you, Scott.
Appreciate it.
There's Representative Scott Cepicky joining us to give his understanding of what's going on with the governor's proposal. We'll be back in just a moment. It's 1:52 on Super Talk. So it's cold, right? I mean, it was cold last night and this morning, but I did not have to worry about it because I have Jeff Eddy on my side. But if your heater's not ready, it's time to call Jeff Eddy. And Efficient Heating and Cooling allow him to come out and see what's up with that heating unit. If you were not able to keep up with the cold last night or this morning, and you're concerned about that, well, that's not going to fix itself. You might want to call Jeff Eddy and get one of his certified technicians to come out to your home and see what's up with your heating unit. And if they can maintenance it and get it right as rain, they'll do so. Maintenance calls are only $125 or less, and that doesn't matter how many units you have. They'll service every single one of them at your home, and oftentimes it's much less than that $125 price point. But if there's something wrong, they'll go ahead and fix that. They're not going to replace your unit unless it's absolutely necessary, and they'll tell you that as well. And if that happens, free financing is offered by Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Plus, they're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric. They're an elite pro partner with Rheem. EfficientHVAC.net, EfficientHVAC.net, or call 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. that there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call? Go to paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
SuperTalk 99.7 WTN 159. Matt Murphy and you for a few moments by ourselves. We'll welcome in Cameron Smith and continue the conversation that is really dominating the discussion here at SuperTalk, at least my portion of the day, and that is educational opportunities for your young people in the state of Tennessee involving the Education Freedom Scholarship Act unveiled by the governor yesterday, a basic parameter of what he hopes to accomplish in the General Assembly come next to January, expanding what is essentially a savings account to students in all 95 counties, initially offering it to 20,000 students across the state, eventually offering it to any student that wants to apply for the opportunity to receive a scholarship to attend a school of their choice to better their child's education. That's what it's all about. We'll continue that discussion coming up in just a moment. One more hour to go on SuperTalk 99.7 WTN.
2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 59 degrees on Music Row. We got a complete weather forecast just a few minutes away. Right now in Tennessee, a news conference today with the mother of a 17-year-old black teenager who lost her life after a reported incident at Youth Villages, the youth group home where she resided in Bartlett, Tennessee. Witnesses claim a legend was brutally assaulted and choked before being transported to Methodist Germantown Hospital where she died. Here's a legend's mother, Shauna Gardner.
At least give me my baby belongings. She has her daddy necklace that I want to bury her with. Her daddy committed suicide. The legend took that very hard. I want to bury that in my daughter's casket. Just give me my baby belongings on top of the truth.
Family attorney Ben Crump says that it is, quote, inhumane what happened to this child. Right now in Nashville International Airport officials say they've listened to all of the traffic complaints from Thanksgiving, so they're going to try to do something to help make it better. Starting on Friday, B&A will offer free and reduced parking for pickup in terminal garages lots 1 and 2. The first half hour will be free, and the hope is that curbside congestion will ease up. In addition to free and reduced parking, TDOT says it's going to speed up work on Donaldson Pike. And with the rise of domestic violent extremism and lone wolf attacks, senators in Washington held a hearing about the security around federal buildings across the country. Liz Landers has more from Washington.
The Senate Homeland Security Committee held a hearing Wednesday on keeping federal buildings across the country safe. Chairman Gary Peters says that current security recommendations are oftentimes ignored in the more than 9,000 federal buildings nationwide. Chris Klein, the Director of Federal Protective Services at the Department of Homeland Security, on his department's work.
Just this calendar year, we have prevented more than 15,000 dangerous weapons, including more than 500 firearms, from entering federal facilities.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Defend Systems is on my mind. You know, I like to say that the chances of you experiencing workplace violence or school violence or violence in your church, God forbid, is minuscule. I mean, it's very, very teeny, despite the fact that we see this happening on a relatively regular basis on national news. It is a very, very, very slim chance that you'll ever experience that. But that is not zero. And that's where Brink Fiddler and Defend Systems comes in, because they are a life safety and security consultation firm that's ready to prepare you for the unlikely event that you experience something like this. They engage in active shooter response training, workplace violence prevention, site surveys to your individual site, threat assessment to your site, security improvement consultation, rapid response medical training, and all of it is customized to your needs in your specific facility. In other words, they're going to go over all of those aspects of these things that you want to go over. They're not going to go into those things that you don't want to go into. At the same time, they are there to help assist you in a dangerously developing world. So it's time to get trained with Defense Systems. Hope is not an answer. Let's give them a call today and schedule an appointment. 615-236-6484. 236-6484 for our friends at Defense Systems, online, defensesystems.com. It is 2:06 and a good afternoon. Welcome back. Matt Murphy Show in progress. Thank you for being with us on this Wednesday edition. Happy to be with you, November 29, 2023. Before you know, I mean, it feels like December should be here already because Thanksgiving is, well, it's a week behind us almost. But it is not here as of yet. That comes on Friday. We've lots to get into in the final hour of the show. We're awaiting another release of hostages. The Israeli government, their spokespeople are saying that there will be a sixth round of hostage releases happening at some time this afternoon for us. It's evening for them. We'll keep you up to date on all of that going on overseas and any developments as a result of that. In the meantime, we've been engaged in a deep discussion about education in the state of Tennessee, public education, private education, homeschooling in the state of Tennessee. We talked with Representative Scott Cepicky, who has been invested in this subject for some time now, and he's kind of our go-to guy when it comes to education and the General Assembly. Governor Lee will be on with us at some point this week or next. I'm working out details on that as he unveiled his proposal to go all in on a savings account for education in the state of Tennessee called the Education Freedom Scholarship Act. To speak on this matter, we welcome our weekly guest on the program. He writes for the Tennessean. He speaks on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. His name is Cameron Smith. Hello, Cameron.
Hey, Matt.
At some point, we have to do the thing with the teams and the thing for this weekend. At some point.
That's true.
At some point, we have to do it.
It's on.
For those who do not know,
I can moderate.
You want to do that?
Yeah,
you want to? All right, 2:35 right after the news.
I'll moderate.
You ask the questions, and we will answer them.
Good. Okay, great.
This is fair. Let's do it.
Is that fair? All right, let's do that. I love this. I love it when a plan comes together. Go Dogs. Okay, but before we get to that, yesterday it was unveiled that the governor wants to expand what has been called a prototype or a pilot program, the Education Savings Accounts, in 3 counties to all 95 counties to include 20,000 scholarships of around $7,000 apiece so that parents have a choice if they find themselves in a negative schooling situation. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a great idea. I want to be clear about a couple things because we're begged, and I'm writing a column on this right now, so I'm kind of chewing through it, but the whole controversy is you either have to be pro-public education or pro-school choice. I have kids that are in a hybrid homeschool environment, that are in public schools, that have IEPs, that all kinds of stuff, right? And I experienced this in my home. And I think the first thing is to make sure that we focus on the kids. Like, are they reaching their full potential? That's it, right? Like, it's not complicated. It's not, do they have great test scores? Because guess what? Test scores don't give you anything. It's just, well, here's where we are. What you need is kids who are educated to their fullest potential, and we create opportunity for them to be members of our community. Like, don't lose sight of the goal here. And public education does a very good job for, let's call it the 25th to the 75th percentile of kids, right? That kind of middle. Like, they have options, they have opportunity in the system as it exists. What I've experienced is that 25% at the bottom, the 25% at the top, the system's not designed for them. It's just not. It's designed for an average.
Too homogenized.
Right, exactly. And so the idea that, well, you can't have any options seems ridiculous to me. I would want to empower parents with options. The challenge that I see in all of this is that we don't give parents enough tools to make informed decisions about what's best for their kids.
I use, you inspire me to tell this story, and I've told it over the years. I met a woman back in Montgomery when I first started doing talk radio who was a school teacher, an art teacher. And the story that she told me has become a microcosm of what I think is wrong with public education from a homogenization standpoint.
Right.
She said, I have 30 students in my art class, and 20 of them, what I teach them is fine. It works for them. For 5 of them, they can't manage the basic curriculum that I'm trying to teach.
Right.
And so I am required to teach them the same things that I teach everyone else. So I have to naturally dumb down or simplify the art projects that we're doing. For 5 on the other end, these are really gifted kids.
Right.
That I want to utilize some specialty, types of things
Give
to
them
really
more.
to push them
Yeah.
and to give them more. And I can't do either of those things.
Right.
So I have to dumb down everyone's
lowest common denominator.
Right, to the lowest common denominator. And so I lose the top end of the kids, and even more than the top end of the kid. So it's a microcosm of public education and what it's become. It doesn't have to be that, though.
No, and one of the things that nobody's talking about, because we're all yelling and we're picking our camps, and is I went down. So my son, my Cam, he had we just noticed some challenges. Like, he was doing all right in school, but it was really hard. And we were sort of like, well, what's going on? We want to understand this kid better.
Mm-hmm.
So I pay a couple $1,000, go to the Learning Lab. They do assessments over a couple days, and they give me back a report. And it says, oh, well, hey, he has some challenges with working memory. That means if you give him one task, he can complete it and do really well. If you give him 3, he'll complete 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so how he learns, I got a report back, and now we've tailored everything around him and how he learns. We need to do that for every student in Tennessee. We need to know, hey, how do you learn? So, typically around age 11 or something like that, say, okay, how do you learn? What is your learning style? And how can we tailor pathways for that? Because kids learn differently. And what you're describing about the art class is reality. And instead of saying kids learn differently, let's develop pathways for kids with the different learning styles, we're like, well, it's either public school or some private school. And what basically this school isn't working for them, so we'll try another. Well, that may not solve the problem either.
I asked Representative Sapicki, and he's not a sponsor of this legislation, although he's generally supportive of it.
Sure.
And I will ask Governor Bill Lee and others, Jack Johnson, who is sponsoring it in the Senate, and I'll ask you, how does something like this benefit public education in the ways that you're talking about we want to benefit public education? In other words, you give parents an opportunity individually to have more decision-making authority as to where their kids go to school, and I appreciate that. And I don't want money to be an impediment to parents being able to make that decision. That's one piece. If it does nothing else but that, I'm supportive of it. But I also want to believe that this in and of itself can incentivize the public education system to get better and to do things differently.
Yeah, and I'll use an example with we're a therapeutic foster home, and some of these kids that have come into my home that are my sons are way behind, right? Like, they're not the 25%, they're the 1%, right? They're really, really struggling. That creates all kinds of challenges in a traditional classroom, right? In that public school. So creating options that give parents like me flexibility and say, hey, we got to do a lot of remedial ed. This public school doesn't have the capacity to do what we need done. But hey, here's a program over here that can really help. I'm taking a burden off that public school significantly. And on the other end, one of my middle sons, God just blessed him with a great mind, right? In public school, he was sitting there playing on a device because he had zipped through the curriculum. Well, that kid can get in trouble. Like, he's got time on his hands. He's creating distractions because he's bored. So
my grandma used to say, idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Amen. And you take that kid and give him some more challenge to keep him occupied. Again, a better public education environment. And I think that's what we're not realizing, is that trying to create one size fits all and being like, there are no alternatives, creates a worse public education environment. If you have a classroom where you don't have distractions on either end and you're teaching to a cohort that benefits from the environment, that is a big win for public education. And I just, the idea of, I just care that the money's leaving the system, that just seems, it's not rational.
According to Sapicki and others, the money's not leaving the system, though, right? I mean, there's going to be no moving of money from public education into the scholarship fund. The two funds are distinct. I asked where the money's coming from, and Sapicki basically told me, we have plenty of money in the state of Tennessee. I'm like, well, can Matt Murphy get some of that back? I mean, I would like,
I actually, and I'm a little bit more radical on some of these ideas. I would put a price on public education, and I would take down some of the district barriers and say, hey, we have public school choice within the public system.
Well, and I think they could do that, and I think it's the right way to go. I think they're not doing that because they understand how that would be demonized politically, and it's already going to be demonized politically that way anyway. Because you already see the usual suspects. The Gloria Johnsons of the world who's running for Senate against Marsha Blackburn, going to get her brains beaten in, but she's going to use this as an opportunity to distinguish herself from Marsha. You've got the Heidi Campbells of the world who are already saying, they're stealing money from public education to benefit fat cats and private people and rich people. I mean, they're already doing that.
Well, look, Democrats have said this legislation benefits millionaires, billionaires, and the middle class. And so,
and poor people too, I think.
And Republicans have said this is lower income. So there's something in here for everybody. But the problem is, and you and I have done this long enough that we've heard all the same arguments, that it's the opponents to these alternatives always say, we're not even fully funding education. And then you ask them, okay, how much do you need? Yeah. And I did this to Heidi Campbell online the other day. I said, how much do you need? Well, we need at least $1 billion to cover unfunded mandates. Okay. And then there was an academic that, without kids, by the way, who chimed in and said, well, actually, with counselors and all the other services, we need $3.5 billion to bring us up to the average per pupil spending across the country. Okay. Well, then is that good enough? Well, no, because do we really want to be average? If we want to be excellent, it will cost more of the billions. And guys, I hear you. But you've got to tell me, if we do that, we get all the resulting benefits, right? Like it's all in there. Like, yes, it'll happen. I'm sure of it.
I mean, if it's all about money, then you ought to have an idea about how much money you need, and you ought to be able to tell me that.
Well, throwing money at the thing isn't the problem.
Well, and Sapicki said, and I didn't realize this because I'm new around here, relatively speaking. He said he's been in the legislature almost 6 years. I think that's right. And that funding has gone from $9 billion to $14 billion in that amount of time. So you're basically increasing education funding in the public system by about $1 billion a year. So at some point, your claims that you are woefully underfunded, it just falls on deaf ears because it's not true.
But this is the problem of you can put all the bells and whistles and programs and features in there. You can fund them. Like funding counselors and mental health folks, I'm actually supportive of that. If you know how to do it and use it to create better options for children. And that, to me, is how you spend the money actually matters. And with this idea that there's this monolithic system and all schools are exactly equal, that's just not true. And we keep acting like it's one system, one size, this will all work. If you do anything else, you hate public education. And I'm saying, why don't we make public education better, the sort of baseline product that we give everybody, by addressing the 25% on the top and the 25% on the bottom that need a little bit of something different?
It's almost as if one group in this discussion is not being honest in their arguments. If I didn't know any better, I would believe that they just want status quo and they don't want anything to encroach on their monopoly on what they do poorly, which is publicly educating our children.
Well, they're stuck. I mean, because I can literally show you arguments from Alabama and other states that have been going on for decades that are the same arguments being used right now. They haven't changed at all. It's you're underfunding education.
220 SuperTalk 99.7 WTN. If you want in on the conversation, do so by dialing us up either on the Super Text line or the phone line, 615-737-9986. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we will have our moderated discussion about the SEC championship game between Cameron Smith and myself. I'm very excited about that. Until then, we'll talk educational opportunities for your youngsters in the state of Tennessee. Back in a moment. Well, how do you keep your valuables secure from fire or from theft? Well, I'm here to tell you, don't hide them under a bed somewhere. Don't hide them in a box. Don't bury them in your backyard. You need a safe from Nashville Safe House, and they have one with well over 200 safes on their showroom floor and over 600 oftentimes. Now, sometimes that dips into the 500s, but they have more of a selection of safes than anywhere else in the southeastern United States and possibly the entirety of the United States. They've got brands like Browning. They're big Browning family, and they've got rebates on Brownings right now. Ask Mark about those. But also Fort Knox, Champion, Rhino Security, all available for you, plus many, many other brands at Nashville Safe House. They have more safes than anyone else because they understand that your lifestyle might be different than the next guy. Your needs might be different than the next person. So whether it's a gun safe, a jewelry safe, a corporate safe, a vault door, whatever your need might be, they've got it at Nashville Safe House. They offer professional delivery. Don't let a crackhead deliver your safe. Mark and his team will give you delivery and installation by their own specially trained Safe House crew. Friends, gun safes are sales tax free at the Safe House right now. It's available to you. Ask Mark and his team about it when you stop by on 4th Avenue South in Nashville, or go online, NashvilleSafeHouse.com, NashvilleSafeHouse.com.
I wanted to touch on the history of Tethered and kind of how it came about.
There was a handful of us that were already using similar equipment. At the time, however, you couldn't just go to the store and buy saddle equipment. It just didn't exist. And selfishly, we just were making gear that nobody else would make for us and that we wanted ourselves. And our goal was just to make enough to break even. Fortunately for everybody involved, it took off. It's got an appeal. People really liked it.
When you think of a saddle, that's what I think of. That's the first name that I think of when I hear about a saddle.
For me, I mean, the reason I got into it was I'm hunting public land, and most of the time I'm going pretty deep. Being lightweight and mobile was huge. I walk in with a pack and my bow. That's it. The more I did it, I was like, man, there's so many features here that are helping me improve as a hunter, where I can take different shot angles and stuff. And I'm going to tell you, I feel safe with this rope all the time.
Yeah.
From the ground up, I'm hooked in. If I fall off this thing, I'm just going to swing a little bit. And I think the learning curve is small. It's just about getting comfortable with your equipment. It's the biggest thing. And for me, it's repetition and then fine-tuning that to meet my needs. And that's the cool thing. What I like and what might meet my needs might be a little different from you. And even though we're doing the same thing, you can tweak it to meet your needs. And I really like that aspect about it.
But we've done a really good job of just innovating and creating products that don't exist. You're seeing the growth of the sport. You're seeing the innovation. And you're seeing all of these cool things that we make, and it's because we actually use it.
A voting change concerning Congressman George Santos, some crime in Tennessee. We'll tell you about it. 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey. It's 2:25 right now. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you, along with Cameron Smith, breaking down, the big story in the state of Tennessee is the possibility of a scholarship expansion. There's already a savings account for students in 3 counties. And this would expand the same concept to 95 counties in the state, offering what is called a Education Freedom Scholarship Act. They're trying to stay away from – why did voucher – I mean, you've studied this longer than me, Cameron. And I admit that I have information gaps with all of this because I don't have any kids. And so I don't have real-world experience. And so I'm trying to learn from super texters and you. Why is voucher a dirty word?
Because for a long time until the Supreme Court clarified this question, it was well, you're taking state dollars and you're using it for religiously affiliated education. And the public school types were, hey, this is a violation of the separation between church and state. This is supporting an establishment of religion. And the Supreme Court basically said, no, we're giving parents a choice and then they choose. The state is not dictating anything.
This question coming from 2305 illustrates the point that I'm making. And I'm going to ask you the question as written.
Okay.
Why would tax money be used for a private school? Are private schools for-profit organizations? If so, why would I be responsible to pay taxes for a family that decides to select a private school? I don't even have children. It's almost as if I wrote this.
Sure. If we're going to have a system of publicly funded education, then the question is, what's the point, right? Well, it's to educate the kids. And the idea of how we do that, of creating different options, is the response that I get that question a lot is, what do you care about? Like, we've decided we're having public education, so you're paying taxes for public education either way. Why do you care that it goes into one system, one way, or multiple systems that produce the results that are the reason that we have the program in the first place? I understand the argument of, why would my dollars go to fund education that doesn't provide the results? Like, if we are not educating the kids, and there are some schools that don't provide a good education, if that's happening, I get that argument. But if you're getting educated in one route versus another, why does it matter?
Well, and if the money followed the kid,
yeah,
that would, I mean, I can understand that, but then leftist and teacher-based organizations freak out when you talk about money following the kid too, right? So if I have children, and if I could pull back some tax money and then utilize that tax money to go, well, now you're taking money out of the public education system. It's part of the reason why you have to supplement it, where you have to have the $140 million or whatever it's going to be, because if you suggest that you're pulling money out of the system to move it over here, then you get that argument. Oh, you're taking from public and giving to private to benefit the rich millionaires and billionaires and all of that.
Yeah, I actually would be fine. Again, put a price tag on public education and say, go where you want. Like, we're going to take, as long as there's capacity. So basically the community that's zoned for a school gets first dibs, and then excess capacity, you know, you can use your money and transfer it there.
And it has been described to me that is kind of the way that it works now. But there are fees that you have to pay in certain communities because they want to supplement the property taxes that are being paid for those school systems. And if you don't live in that system, then you're not paying property taxes there. So if you want to be a part of it, you get credit for the state contribution, but then you have to pay the county contribution.
And I'm just saying, put dollar figures on all that.
Yeah,
right?
I'm in agreement with that.
You know, and make it so that people know, because if you look at how much some of these systems are paying per child for the results they're getting, it's just like, what are you doing?
A lot of money. One final thought on this, and we're going to put a cap on it. Tony's in Cool Springs. Tony, you've got a question or a comment about school vouchers?
Yeah, Matt. It's more of a theory, because my wife's a teacher and my daughter's a teacher. My wife's been teaching for 21 years. My daughter just resigned from teaching for 5 years. And everybody's blaming the schools and blaming the teachers. It's the problem we're having with disciplines in these schools. The kids are not held accountable for anything they do. During the last TCAP my wife was on, she had a young man take an 80-minute test. He had the test done before she could give out the questionnaires. And she's responsible for them scores. How can that be? So nothing's going to change, no matter if they go to a private school, public school, whatever, until these kids and parents are accountable for what they do. It's like a farmer. You can lead a horse to water. You cannot make them drink.
Well, but obviously, the parents that are going to invest, I would argue, Tony, that parents that perhaps don't have the financial ability, that are willing to invest.
Anything to do with financial.
All right, I'll shut up and let you talk in the middle of my sentence. Go ahead.
This is a thing about the kids not listening to a teacher, arguing with the teacher during when a teacher wants to put out information.
You done?
Go ahead.
Okay. My sentence, and I'll start it over, was that what we're talking about with this scholarship program, these are parents, if they are going to perhaps not have the money to invest in a private education opportunity for their kids, but they see this as an opportunity to invest their time and their energy to apply for the program, to get their kids into that private setting, to apply to that private school, to even supplement the cost of that private school. These are parents that are actually engaged. So that level of engagement is already there. I understand what you're saying about a lack of engagement in a large part of the parenting that exists in the public education system. But these are hopefully you encourage those parents to engage more so than they already are. And obviously those parents that are willing to put in the time and energy to apply for these scholarships are more engaged parents anyway, but you're taking away certain financial barriers that exist currently for them to get their kids in a better private school setting.
Okay, what about the kids that aren't rich, that don't qualify for the voucher, that are doing good but want to do better? How are we discriminating against them?
I don't understand what
We're not.
We're not. I mean, as a matter of fact, you're prioritizing. I mean, in this program, based on the reading of the program, you're prioritizing kids that are in poverty-based situations. You're prioritizing, first and foremost, kids that are at or up to 200% of the poverty level, federal poverty level. Then the second tier is up to 300% of the federal poverty level, and that's the first 10,000 kids. And only until those kids are taken care of do you open it up for more affluent families to apply.
I agree, but when you go to
that was easy
from a public school to a private school. Private schools don't deal with government; they teach what the private school wants to teach.
Yes.
The public schools are required to teach what the state is required.
Yes.
My daughter couldn't tell time until she was in 11th grade.
Which system did she go to?
She went to a public school.
I bet I could have guessed that. Tony, I appreciate the call. I got to scoot. I'm sorry if I interrupted you in the middle of a point, but I'm very late. Mac Morey's standing by with news headlines. These are burning in his hands. They're going to burn to a crisp if he does not deliver them to us right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.233, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 59 degrees in Nashville, a sunny day on Music Row. That temperature change in effect that I was talking about this week. We'll tell you more about temperature changes with a full forecast in 2 minutes. Starting in the nation's capital, formal vote in the House to expel Republican Congressman George Santos of New York was set for tomorrow, but we've now learned the vote has been pushed back to Friday. Derek Dennis.
Time may be running out for New York Congressman George Santos, who has stayed in office, refusing to resign after admitting to lying about much of his resume and personal story to get elected, and then indicted on 23 federal charges of fraud, theft, and lying to federal election officials. But the vote is controversial. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson expressing concern about removing Santos from office without him being convicted of anything.
I personally have real reservations about doing this.
And GOP Representative Elise Stefanik said that, quote, his constituents deserve to elect someone new who is not a fraud. Crime in Tennessee. Clarksville police have arrested 18-year-old William C.J. Barton in connection to multiple vehicle burglaries. Police found that Barton allegedly stole from 14 different vehicles. His bond set at $150,000. And law enforcement took this opportunity to emphasize the importance of locking your car, taking your key with you, along with safely and securing any firearms. And 2 women under arrest accused of bypassing security at the Phoenix airport on Monday so they could catch their flight. Alex Stone with the details.
According to court documents, the 2 women entered Terminal 3 at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport by going through Do Not Enter signs. The TSA confronted them. A security breach was declared, but the women allegedly kept walking past TSA officers saying they were late for a flight, and they kept going, saying they were not going to wait for security. An alert was issued notifying of an incident. Police caught up to the women who continued to say they were late for a flight. They were allegedly not apologetic. Both women were arrested.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
So for some of you, we are in open enrollment season. There are two kinds, one for people and small businesses who buy their own medical insurance, and the other for those who are eligible for Medicare. Pat Davis and his team at yourhealthplanman.com can help with both. When planning health insurance for you or your family, you need to consult with an expert. And let me just tell you, with Pat Davis and yourhealthplanman.com, they don't provide like specific programs from specific companies. They shop all of them, meaning they have flexibility. It is similar in nature to going to one grocery store and shopping around for me and then going to another and going to another and going to another. If you were limited to just that one store, if you had someone selling you to just that one store, well, you would be price limited and you would be selection limited. Pat Davis does not have those limitations. His team at Your Health Plan Man has been helping people find the right coverage for them, no matter the company, for years, and they can do it for you as well. They're very much a healthcare concierge at Your Healthcare planman.com. So go to yourhealthplanman.com. Let me say it right. Yourhealthplanman.com to find out how they can benefit you. Do this for you. Do this for your family. You'll thank me. It's yourhealthplanman.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 2:40. Thank you for being with us on the Matt Murphy portion of the broadcast day. We'll hand off to Brian Wilson. We'll talk with Brian before we do the handoff. That's coming up in, I don't know, about 15 minutes or so. Many of you have noted this. I am trying to be nice. Despite what Rocco says the host is so rude. How dare he interrupt the beginning of the caller's sentence with the middle of the host's sentence? I don't know that that's what I did there. I don't know that. And many of you are noting, and I was trying to be nice to the caller. Caller Tony said that his daughter did not understand how to tell time until the 11th grade.
I think didn't he say 11?
Did he? I thought he said 11th grade.
I heard he said 11th grade.
Said 11th grade.
11th grade. Dude, you are a parenting fail.
I think maybe your daughter was just telling you that so that she could stay out as long as she wanted to.
Dad, I had no idea.
I don't know how to tell time. They don't teach me.
That's like any time I ask at my house, What happened? What? I don't know who I am. Where am I?
What?
Who are you? Haven't we met before?
I have a long-standing hatred of the cartoon Family Circus.
Mm-hmm.
You know the cartoon
Yeah, I
I'm
know what
referring
you're talking
to?
about.
But one thing I do appreciate is the who me ghost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who did whatever you're accusing any of us of doing, but it must have been a ghost, and it wasn't us.
I like when my boys tell me how the thing could have hypothetically happened if they would have done it. And I'm like, wait a minute. You didn't do it. But if I will, if
It's like O.J. Simpson writing that book.
you know what might have happened.
If I did it.
And I'm like, dude,
And then
what do you're telling me some very specific things about what might have happened. Like, Dad, if the pencil had flown across the room and stuck in the wall, it might have left a mark that looks like that.
Right.
Like,
But you didn't do it. Nope. I didn't do it.
I
wasn't here.
It's clearly a pencil.
But I'm just deducing this from,
Yes.
my brain.
Real smart.
I'm just a smarty. It's like O.J. Simpson. O.J., what did he write a book
Yeah.
called If I Did It? Like, I didn't do any of this, but if I did it, this is how it went down.
Right.
I think you did it. I think you did it. Nope, I didn't do it. But a lot of you are noting that maybe Tony should have stepped in at some point before the 11th grade and taught his kid how to tell time. Oh, I think that's maybe an option that Tony didn't consider. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have on the wall there somewhere? There should be something that Bell has placed on your sound wall that is appropriate for what we're about to do. I want to poison the well with a little of this, and I'm hopeful that Mason can figure it out on the fly and provide me the audio that I'm so desperate to hear as we begin a conversation about the SEC championship game. You know, Cameron Smith is a longtime Alabama Crimson Tide fan.
It's true.
Matt Murphy, I'm a fan of the University of Georgia Bulldogs, whose theme for their football team is Glory, Glory. Yes! Nice. Glory to Georgia.
Yeah, this is the...
Glory to
isn't
Georgia and to hell with the Crimson Tide. Yes!
Yes, this is the theme song for the grown men who wear the spike collars and bark at each other.
Yes, we bark at
That's
you.
right.
If you don't like it, we'll pee on your leg too.
Right.
So to moderate this robust discussion about the SEC championship, a last opportunity for me to speak with Cameron Smith before the weekend activities, we welcome in the one and only Mac Moore. Everybody.
Thank you.
Unaffiliated.
Very gracious of you guys.
Very little to me.
Nice.
And
Very,
the old ladies go wild.
very gracious of you guys to let the Vols fan in on this discussion.
That's gross.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you got Nico coming next year. Woo! Everybody says that's going to be great for you guys. Why do we have to play you guys twice at your place in consecutive years?
That's the way it works, man.
Yeah, there's no SEC West and East anymore.
I know,
it's just
so-
some weird. We got Alabama's got Georgia, Tennessee, and Vandy. So there we go.
Ooh, Vandy. Ooh, no.
Hey. Well, look, that is Tennessee's in-state rival. Did you know that?
I've been told. But enough about Tennessee. Where are you guys going bowling, by the way? Do you know yet? Gator Bowl?
I don't know yet.
Gator
Yeah,
Bowl?
that sounds probably right.
Probably about right. All right. I don't know what you want to know, but as you moderate this, I'll just get out of the way.
Okay, I think first off, we just start with what you guys feel good about. What versus each other? What is a strength that you're looking at to show out here on Saturday? I'll start with the Alabama fan and Cameron. You're facing one of the best defenses in college football, probably the best defense in college football. One of the best defensive runs these past few years we've ever seen in college football history. What do you feel about? What is something that you're saying, yes, we can attack that. We can do this.
Well, that was excessive praise. Just want to say that.
I pay him more.
So we don't actually know what we're doing on offense, so you probably won't either. And I am the happiest Alabama fan right now because it has been a weird year, y'all. And I can tell you, here's what I do know. Either it's going to be really great or just really weird because Jalen Milroe can run like a deer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he can.
And so that's what I'm optimistic about is you can game plan for an offense, but I cannot tell you what our offense is. So what exactly are you going to prep for? Is it going to be him scrambling? Is it
Fourth
going to
and
be
31?
Yeah,
That's what I'm prepping for. That's what I'm prepping for.
Let's defend. That's the kind of thing that happens this year. And either it happens and we eke out a win or it doesn't and we get crushed. But this is weird. I feel like an Auburn fan this year.
I hope that Alabama's offense peters out like his answer. That's what I hope.
And it might. I don't know.
The biggest, I will respond by saying that the biggest fear that I have from the Georgia perspective is that if we do have a weakness, as shown by the Missouri game, as shown to a lesser degree, now Ole Miss, we really contain Jackson Dart, mobile quarterbacks that have designed runs and have an ability to scramble. Most of the yards that we give up on defense are from mobile quarterbacks that can get outside of the pocket and then do something crazy.
You mean like Alabama's quarterback?
Like Alabama's quarterback. So I would expect that we have a game plan to try to stop that, but whether it works or not, we'll find out on
Our
Saturday.
strategy of non-strategy is pretty strong.
Well, I mean, Kirby Smart, as you showed me, Matt, tells me that Jalen Milroe is both,
superhuman.
Superhuman. Tim Tebow, Lamar Jackson, nothing compared to Milroe.
Kirby was asked during his press conference like 2 days ago. They said, Coach, it was a reference to 2009 for some reason, and he said, Tim Tebow was the quarterback of Florida that year. Would you compare Jalen Milroe to a Tim Tebow type? And he goes, well, no disrespect to Tim Tebow. Jalen Milroe is next level. And then proceeded to compare Jalen Milroe to Lamar Jackson, the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens.
Fair.
But said he was a bigger, faster Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, obviously.
I mean,
but this is where Saban and Smart have clearly coached together, because Saban is talking about Carson Beck, and I'm like, he's a good quarterback, but Nick Saban's like, man, he never makes a mistake. I've never actually seen him do anything wrong.
You're never going to catch either. I mean, and Smart learned from Saban, right?
Yes.
You're never going to catch either of those guys giving any sort
if
of
there was a trophy beyond
material.
the Heisman, Carson Beck deserves that trophy.
Only Kirby would suggest that Jalen Milroe has already gotten that award, so it's not available to Carson Beck.
They're both doing the same, like build up the other team. And so it's the rat poison, man. It's the rat poison.
Well, okay, so we talked a lot about the Georgia defense, which obviously that's going to be, and Jalen Milroe. Let's flip sides here. Georgia offense, Alabama defense. I think that's gone underplayed, which, I mean, it's kind of hard to do, but Bama's defense is elite. I mean, maybe not on the, one-of-one Georgia type level, but Alabama's defense is fantastic on all three levels.
I would say that Alabama's defense is better than ours, although I think we have a better scoring defense, and we're better on passing. We're not as good defending the rush, and mainly because of those quarterback scrambles. Where I feel most comfortable with the Georgia offense is our offensive line and our ability to run the football. And if we, and I know that it's coach speak, but if we establish that just opens everything else up for Carr. I mean, we have a legit two-headed monster.
Whenever people say that, it's like, if we can run over you, we'll probably win the game. Well, yeah.
I mean,
that's how that works. I, too, believe if we can run the – yeah, I mean, I get that.
There's a great scene there's a play called Greater Tuna, and there's a great scene where it's about two radio guys, and they have the coach of the high school team in who just lost 49-0, and they're like, well, Coach, what happened? And the coach says, well, the first problem that we had is that we couldn't score.
Yeah.
And the second issue that I found with the team was that we could not stop them. But if you take those two things away, we got ourselves a tie ball game, and I'm pretty proud about that.
It's kind of like what we all say.
Yeah,
like it's like it's kind of like when you ask people about like bourbon and stuff, and they're like, it has hints of oakiness. I'm like, do you know what you're talking about?
No. Do not. Oh, it's got a nutty pecan. What? Shut up. All right, so you want give me a final score prediction from you, moderator.
27-20 Bulldogs.
I got 31-27 Alabama.
Okay.
Damn.
Will Reichard becomes the highest point scorer in NCAA history.
42-20, Georgia.
Woo! Mm-hmm. Smoke show.
Whooping. Brian Wilson coming up next to talk to us about puppy dogs. Have you seen his new puppy? I hope that it's just solo for the next 4 hours. No offense to Brian Wilson. We'll talk about that next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call. Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
All right, finishing up, 2 or so minutes left in our portion of the broadcast day. We're going to bring in Brian Wilson to join us because, man, oh, man. Brian, I wish that I had Solo on the radio. I mean, I'm sorry. As much as I love you, as much as I appreciate the drive with Brian Wilson from 3 until 7, yesterday was a high water mark.
You know, listen, I got to tell you, we said that at 4:05 we were going to show the new puppy, Solo, on our Super Talk TV circuits. And forget governors, forget politicians. If you want to juice your ratings, just have a newborn puppy on, because I'm telling you, the numbers were 5 times larger than they normally are.
I love it. How old is Solo? How old?
Solo was born yesterday, actually, and so the last night was the full. We're trying to. Do the 2. We have to do a 2 a.m. and a 4 a.m. feeding to make sure that she eats every 2 hours. And so we have to, sort of help her along in the early going and help her find where mama's milk is. And we do that. And so I am thankful today for the people who came up with this concept called the 5-hour energy drink.
Well, that'll keep you going throughout the afternoon. Hopefully, maybe, I don't know, Solo makes another appearance. Who knows? I'll be watching.
Well, listen, you need to watch Super Talk TV because it just might happen. Might not happen, but it might happen, and you want to be there if it happens.
That is a professional radio and television tease, ladies and gentlemen, from Brian Wilson in The Drive. Brian's coming up 3 until 7 this afternoon, right after Mac Maury in the news, and Mac Maury's coming up right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll talk to you tomorrow, folks. So long.
Tight.
Three o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 59 degrees, a sunny day in Nashville. Expecting that sun to fade, though, starting later tomorrow. We'll tell you about it in a full weather forecast coming up. Plus, our first traffic report of the afternoon, both in 5 minutes. At least 9 Americans are being held hostage still by Hamas in Gaza. Families of some of those 9 were in Washington today to advocate for the release of their loved ones. Liz Landers with more.
Orna and Ronan Nutra described their son Omer as fearless, an American boy who loves hip-hop, the NFL, and the NBA. But they haven't heard from him in more than 50 days since he was pulled from his Israeli Defense Forces tank and captured by Hamas. The couple are in Washington to advocate for the release of their son, a Long Island native who felt obligated to serve in the Israeli army, and other American hostages being held by Hamas. Orna repeated again and again on Wednesday, "I can't believe this is real."
And more hostages are expected to be released today. Crime in Tennessee. A teen was arrested in connection to a carjacking of a 66-year-old woman. Happened yesterday. 18-year-old Corey Stone allegedly took her car at gunpoint in the Kroger parking lot on Charlotte Pike. Police said he led officers on a 15-minute-long pursuit, hitting multiple parked cars and tossing a pistol from the vehicle before his eventual arrest. And before that happened, Stone tried to steal another car from a man, but that man defended himself well. Bond for Stone has been set at $86,000. And with more and more Democrats criticizing Israel for its conduct of the war on Hamas, the highest-ranking Jewish member of Congress is speaking out.
Chuck Schumer says he agrees Israel should take pains to avoid killing civilians in Gaza. But the highest-ranking Jewish member of Congress says some criticism of Israel's war on Hamas has crossed a line. And in a 45-minute floor speech, the Senate Majority Leader blasted progressives for leveling it.
When I've asked some of the marchers what they would do about Hamas, they don't have an answer. Many don't seem to care.
Amid the activist pressure on the left, some Democrats in Congress are increasingly saying Israel shouldn't be given a blank check by the U.S.
In drugs in the volunteer state, Putnam County Police spent over a year investigating the sale of illegal drugs near Jackson County. It ended in 16 drug-related arrests. The operation was called Operation Omega. Among those arrests, over $800,000 has been set in bonds. In some entertainment news, Taylor Swift will end the year as the most listened to artist on the most listened to streaming service in the world. Jason Nathanson.
Was there any doubt? 2023 has been the year of Taylor Swift, and Spotify announced Wednesday that Swift is their top global artist of the year. More than 26 billion streams since January 1st. Bad Bunny was the second most streamed artist, followed by The Weeknd and Drake. To celebrate her victory, Swift dropped a new song. And And speaking of songs, Miley Cyrus had the most streamed song of the year worldwide with Flowers, followed by SZA's Kill Bill and Harry Styles' As It Was.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.